I'm going to take.
Howdy, everybody, and welcome to this wonderful episode of Retro Repair Roundup for the 25th of May, 2025, or whatever date in whatever universe you happen to be in. I'm Joe, and apparently I supposedly run the show, but Ron's been doing all the heavy lifting, so let's give Ron a round of applause real quick.
A round of applause.
Yeah, you're funny. Quick housekeeping, of course. Thank you all for stopping in tonight and watching our silly little show. We do appreciate your viewership. While you're here, hit the like button, do the subscribe button, ring the bell, and do all that YouTube-y stuff. Throw lots of comments in the chat because it helps YouTube promote the channel and get us in front of more eyeballs. And that's what we want to do. We want to have cool guests like we have. Mark, talk to more cool people. So that's what we do. Without further ado, let's get right to it and talk to our wonderful guest, Mark Stephen Pierce. He's a graphic artist, co-founder of Macromind, and Macintosh gaming legend. How are you doing this evening, Mark?
I'm doing good. Good. Very excited about this. This is very interesting.
Yeah. So why don't you give everybody a quick intro to who you are, what you do, and all of that stuff, because I'm sure we have some people who know only the edges of Mark. So let's get the full picture.
Okay, I'll do a quick run through so it doesn't bore everyone. Basically, I went to the Schoolyard Institute in Chicago in the late 70s and finished up in, 81, 82, something like that. But the thing there is they had a computer. I was in the video lab and they got a computer, which sounds not too amazing these days, but in 1979, to have a computer was a thing. And I just went nuts on it, and I started animating. It was Bally Basic was the first thing on the Astrocade, and then Tom DeFani, who was at the University of Illinois, had the Z-Grass box, which was a more powerful version of that. And I stayed up all night just drawing in the video lab, doing animations, and just got totally hooked into it. Tom eventually saw my work and wanted me to work for him at Real Time Design, doing demos and stuff. And so that's how I got into the computer business. And then right out of art school, I ended up at Bally doing a game called Professor Pac-Man, which is an arcade game in about 83. And then I was working at Dave Nutting Associates, which was a subcontractor to Bally. And that's where I met Mark Cantor, Jay Fenton. And then the three of us worked together. Jay had done Gorf at that company. And the three of us worked together. Mark was an audio guy, Jay was an engineer, and I was an artist. And Dave Nutting had some very cool tools written in Forth, which allowed you to like animate characters and what have you. And so the three of us got together with the idea to start a company and bring those tools that we had in the video game development business to consumers. And this is right when the Mac was about to come out, the 128K Mac. And so we formed a company, got a little bit of money, and a very little bit, by today's standards, it was ridiculous. We created Macromind. And Macromind, we hooked up with the publisher Hayden. I don't even know how we got hooked up with them. They were one of the early Mac publishers, and we did video works and music works. And they were some of the first software available on the Mac when it first came out, the 128K Mac. And MusicWorks was really good for demoing in stores because it was like Music Calc, and you could just draw lines on a screen that would make sound. And so that got us a lot of visibility. Anyway, I was at Macromind for a couple years working with Mark and Jay, and then decided to move on. Mark and I got into a little bit of a fracas, but nothing serious, and we've all made up now and everything. It was just youth. I then ended up, Charlie Jackson from Silicon Beat Software reached out to me. They had done Airborne, and they called me out to San Diego because they wanted me to do this horror game. And I went there one day in San Diego, and they said they want to do a horror game. And I said, let's not do horror. Everybody likes medieval stuff. All geeks love medieval stuff. And I said, why don't we do that? And then they were just sitting there. It was just his wife, Charlie, and Jonathan Gay, who was the engineer. And I had one of my more creative days ever. And on a big flipboard, whiteboard thing, I explained what Dark Castle was. I just freeformed it, and I did about 10 of the rooms with a marker on this paper. And then the next day I went home, and Charlie agreed to do the game, and then John and I did it. And this is way back in the Stone Age. So I was in Chicago. John was in San Diego. That was one of 3 times I met Jonathan Gay. I did Dark Castle and Beyond Dark Castle, and I only met him 3 times. And I got a contract going with them. And I would work in Chicago. I would draw all the characters, and I would animate them in VideoWorks, and I would put a floppy disk in the mail. And then I would mail that to San Diego, and he'd open it up, and he'd do some programming. He'd send me back a program disk, and I'd communicate that way on the phone. Huge technological breakthrough about halfway through Dark Castle. This company called FedEx started up, and we could send disks overnight. That was crazy. And so we did that, and we got the game out. I don't know, it took us about 6 to 9 months to make it, and it did very well. And then we did the Beyond the Dark Castle game. Shortly after that, there it is there. I have a few boxes still, and I have a lot of discs too. There you go. Now that's a port. Which one? Is that the Amiga one?
That's the Apple IIgs.
Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of bad ports. I never saw that one, but some of them were really poor. The Sega one was probably the worst.
Boo Amiga.
So that was the Dark Castle story. And then after that, I moved out to California, to Northern California, and kicked around there looking for jobs. I did some animation or art for Macworld magazine, but I was finishing up Beyond Dark Castle when we moved to San Francisco. And I was looking for a job, and I got a job at Sente, which is Nolan Bushnell's company that he started after he did Atari. And I got a job there animating, but then eventually I got a job at Atari Games in Milpitas. And I went to the interview. I brought my 128K Mac with me, and you couldn't send files and stuff back then. And I demoed my game for them, and I got the job as designer and animator. And started in, I did Road Blasters was the first game I worked on. Worked with Bonnie Smithson on that. She was the engineer for that. And then after Road Blasters, I did Escape from the Planet of the Robot Monsters. All of these, I was project leader, art designer. The teams were great. They're like 5-6 people. And then after that, I think that's Clax was next, I think. And then I got on the Pit Fighter project and got that one out the door. And that was probably the best-selling game I did at Atari. Did Road Riot after that. And Guardians of the Hood, which shall not be mentioned. You can edit that part out. I didn't. Not all of them are great. You love all your children, but some aren't as fast as the others. Anyway, so that I was there, and things got really bad at Atari in the early 90s. And a lot of people were being poached by EA, Ed Log, and everything. Dave Toyer left. A lot of the legends left. And I even was starting to negotiate a contract to do external development with Atari. And halfway through the contract negotiations, Hide Nakajima, who was the president of Atari, offered me the role to be the VP of engineering, which I said, okay, but it's going to be called product development. And I took that job over. And it took us about 3 years to turn the company around, but we did. And we did Area 51 was the first successful game. We then went on and did Gauntlet Legends and Legacy, and but San Francisco Rush was our big hit at that time. California Speed, a number of other projects. So we had a good run, all the way up to 2000 when I decided to move on. I took some time off, and then I started my own company, Super Happy Fun Fun, which went for about 18 years. We were based out of Austin, and we started off doing console work, but then got into mobile. We even did a brew version of Dark Castle along the way, which, you can imagine, a little QSIF phone, flip phone kind of game. It wasn't the greatest thing on earth, but anyway, we did that. And then got involved with a number of other projects, did plug and play TV games with Jack Specific and such. And then I shut down the company in 2019. We moved back out to California here. And within about 10 months or so, I got a job at Visual Concepts working on Lego 2K Drive, which is a platform. It's a AAA game that's across like 7 different platforms. So open world driving game, a lot of fun on that project. I left there in September, and honestly, since about December, I looked back on my career, which is about 40 years, and I realized the first 10 years of my career was all on the creative side. Everything else was on the production side, executive producer, manager, all this kind of stuff, VP, CEO, all that. And I realized I had the most fun, and the reason I got into video games was not to push Jira tickets around, but to actually create stuff. And I really just love, the digital needlepoint that is pixel pushing. And also I saw then too that on Steam now, there seems to be a pretty serious or good enough size market or niche market for Metroidvania games or, sideways scrolling retro games. And this really wasn't there a long time ago. And I decided I'm going to go for it. And so I've been working on art now since December. And I had a engineer actually join me about 2 months ago. And so now we're actually getting it. We're doing it in Unity. And the idea is basically to release it on Steam. I'd love to do it in the next year. I don't know if that's possible or not. Frankly, I'm not really concerned about that right now. I just want to make the most excellent game I've ever made in my life with everything I learned over the past 40 years and using the property that I still own, which is Dark Castle. Along the way there, we did release Return to Dark Castle, which two guys, Zach and Zach, a company called Z-Sculpt did. And we released that in like 2008, maybe. And it did okay, but we really didn't promote it. And it was only on the Mac. And he did a good job, though. They had all the levels from Beyond Dark Castle, all the levels from Dark Castle. And then also he did, I think, about 50 additional levels. And I played that game a lot. And they did a really nice job, I think, of updating it. The update I want to do now, though, I want to go for high-end pixel art. It's all going to be hand-drawn. I don't know about the backgrounds yet, but I really want to go for just super high-quality pixel art game and just leverage that whole retro thing that's going on, and also just make a statement about the property and kind of carry out the vision as I see it right now.
Oh, yeah.
One last thing that's an interesting note, perhaps, is, as I mentioned, Jonathan Gay was the engineer. He worked in San Diego. I worked in Chicago. I only met him before we started Dark Castle. Then I met him when we launched it at the Macworld Expo or whatever it was called. And I met him one other time in my life. And those are the 3 times I ever met him. And as I mentioned, I was involved, one of the 3 creators of VideoWorks, which later became Director and got bought by Adobe. And we both did Dark Castle together. And I just found out when I bought the rights back in the 2000s that after he finished Dark Castle, he went on and created something called Flash. So you have this bookend of a director and Flash by the 2 guys who were involved in it. And we both worked on Dark Castle. So that was kind of interesting to find out.
Well, maybe one day people will hear about this flash thing. Maybe it'll take off. Who knows?
So anyway, I've been working on it now, and it's funny. I'm using, since I got out of doing art. I created the art tool. I did VideoWorks, of course, but I created the art tool that we used at Atari Games. And when I became VP in the early 90s, I missed out on learning Photoshop. And as you know, Photoshop's pretty complex and it's got a lot of, not really intuitive how you do it. So it took me some time when I started up doing Photoshop here the past 6 months. But I'm using Director to animate everything and test my animations just like I did with John. And I'm sending, albeit through Slack now, I can send video files to Ben, who's helping me with the engineering. Ben Milstead's an engineer who's joined me on this thing. So yeah, that's where we're at now. I don't know if that answered all your questions, and hopefully that wasn't too long and boring.
No, that's great. That's all of our questions for tonight, though.
Okay.
So thanks. No, we might cover some of the same ground over again, but that might give you an opportunity to go into maybe a longer response on some of those things.
Sure.
I mean, more nuanced kind of thing. And we'll have questions from people in the audience tonight too that we'll monitor and add those at the end. So, but Trina, do you want to get us started?
I can totally do that. So you gave some basics about your start with computers. Could we get a few more details? Like, when did you get started with computers? You said like around 79. And do you remember like the system that you started on? Like what?
I don't remember the system. There was this lab in the basement of the School of the Art Institute is the video lab, which at that time was, big, thick videotape. And it was pretty amazing and controversial to have video at an art school that was known for painting and other things. And then there was an audio lab, which had a big EMU synthesizer in it with big patch bays on it. And then Sonia Sheridan had this, I can't remember, it was some goofy name she had for her class, something with technology or something like that. Anyway, she had the first computer and I got in there and I don't remember what it was. It was kind of a home built thing. It was orange box, about yay big. And all you could do is colored text. And so I sat there and I figured out how to make pictures out of colored text, stayed up all night doing stupid pictures and just had a gas on it. And then after about, I don't know what, weeks, months, the video lab then got in bed with Tom DeFani, who was over at the University of Chicago, and he gave us this Z-Grass machine. And at that time, Bally had the Astrocade, which was kind of a 2600 wannabe. And on it had Bally Basic. And so I started working in Bally Basic and just doing little animations and things like that. And then when Z-Grass came, Z-G-R-A-S-S, when Z-Grass came along, it was a much more powerful version of that. And I made this animated talking face of Albert Einstein, which then Tom DeFani saw. And then it was actually got to be in the intro of SIGGRAPH that year, which was a computer graphics conference. I think it's still going on. I'm not sure. But anyway, that was on the Z-Grass machine. And then when I went to Midway through Dave Nutting and Associates, they were also using that same chipset. That chipset was used for Wizard of War, Gorf, and a few other projects. And we programmed in Terse, which was this threaded interpretive language. I even did some programming back then, but mostly still just drawing and everything. But I can't remember the name of that first computer. I'd love to find it. It was a clunker. It was nothing fancy. Absolutely.
Next question would be, how did you react the first time you tried out Mac Paint, and how did the tools it provided satisfy you at first? And did you move on quickly to other tools after Mac Paint, or?
No, I think if you were around then, it was so amazing. I mean, just even fonts. You're like, you show your friends would come, look at the fonts. Wow, look, I can make them bigger and smaller, and I could put kerning on them. And so, everything was amazing. And Mac Paint was, basically we had Mac Paint inside of VideoWorks. Obviously not as robust as Mac Paint. And I used Mac Paint for a long time. And, it was like drawing with a pack of cigarettes, right? You had the big mouse and you sat there. And it was amazing. At some point, Silicon Beach did Super Paint. And I started using that instead because that was, there's a mouse. I started using that instead because it had some more features. But basically used Mac Paint and VideoWorks at that time to do everything on the Mac. And it was like everything. I mean, the fact you could even draw. I mean, I don't know if you remember, you get a Mac 128, you have your friends come over. Everybody wanted to see it because it was a hot topic. And all this stuff that you take for granted now, even the desktop, everything was just so amazing compared to where Windows was at in 1983, 4, or whatever.
It's true. There's kind of a famous picture of Steve Jobs dropping off a Mac 128 for I'm pretty sure it's for Sean Lennon. Like just stopped by John Lennon's house to drop off a Mac 128.
Well, what we did was kind of interesting. We Mark J and I, Macromind, once we got a demo of video, or I don't know if it was VideoWorks or MusicWorks. I think maybe MusicWorks was first. we decided to take a trip to California, to the Silicon Valley. And the three of us went and shared a hotel room, and we rented this convertible Dodge. It's the one with the, I don't know what, LeBaron, the Dodge LeBaron.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, in VideoWorks, there's an animated picture of a little Dodge LeBaron driving around. It's one of the free animations I provided in the game, or the product. And we just went around. We had no meetings. We went to Amiga. We knocked on their door and walked in and had our 128 and demoed it. And we went to Apple, did the same thing. We just literally showed up at all these places in Silicon Valley. We even ended up demoing it for Mickey Hart, who is a drummer for the Grateful Dead.
Nice.
I mean, it was just, and everybody just wanted to see stuff, right? It was so exciting, the Mac at that time, that we could get an audience with just about anybody. And the fact that we could, make sound and everything with it was another plus for that. But we just basically went there and spent about 4 or 5 days traveling around Silicon Valley and just showing people whoever would look at it.
So when you showed it off to members of the Grateful Dead, did that deal go down?
Well, there was no deal. It was just
that's just the song. I'm joking.
Okay. So it was very interesting, and as a result of that, after that 5 or 6, I don't even know how long, it was a week there. I was living in Chicago. I think it was February or March, which Chicago may not have nice weather at that point in time. And I went to Silicon Valley and went to Rosati's, which is this bar in Alpine, and I go, okay, we got to move here, because I came back and I got on the L train and everybody's feet were stained with salt, and it was just typical Chicago. And I go, okay, we're going back out there. So that was kind of the impetus for moving out there.
I'm gonna trade the place where it's like winter for the place where it's mostly summer. I get it. So.
Oh yeah, there's the animation. Wow, I haven't seen that in a long time. There goes the car. That was us in the car. One of those cars is you'll see 3 guys sitting in it. Maybe. Let's see. There they are. That's us.
That's great.
Cool. Oh God, I haven't seen those in a long time. Wow.
There can't be LA traffic. There's nowhere near enough cars.
I have all the old movies and everything from that time, but not all of them play on the current video. What's it called? Director 12.
Yeah.
And I got to go and fix them all up or something. But I'm still using Director now. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, I know it. Like, I can do it in my sleep. I know all the keystrokes and everything. And so it's the fastest way for me to animate. And it's a great way to express to the engineer, Ben, that, this is what I want it to look like. And he can ask questions about it and see how it works and give him the offsets.
Nice.
Well, it's awesome to see all that stuff again.
Yeah. It's really cool. You still use the good old tools, because they still work. They're still great.
It's because I'm an old guy.
These are running on real hardware Mac Plus sitting beside me. Nice.
I might have to come out there and save it. There's some generation of VideoWorks where you could save it off, and I think the videos would now work with the current director. I think it was sometime in 2000 or so, and I did convert a lot of them, but not all of them. So
that's pretty awesome. But Mark,
I still have all the original files from Dark Castle, all the Mac Paint files, which I'm using to rotoscope everything. And I also have all the original little videos I gave Jonathan to engineer with. And, as we get close, pardon me?
Special edition.
Yeah.
With the making of using those resources to tell people about the story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're gonna start once we have something worth showing. We're gonna start getting more social with it. Get on Reddit and do
Steam Deluxe bundle. There you go.
Yeah. And I don't know if we're gonna do a Kickstarter or not or whatever, but we've got to build awareness prior to the launch. So as we get closer, we're gonna start leaking all this kind of stuff out and put things together.
That's awesome.
Probably do T-shirts again. I still have a bunch of T-shirts.
Well, I have a torso. Just let me know.
So yeah, we're gonna start once we have something worth showing. We're gonna start socializing it and building up, presence on the web about it and everything.
That's awesome.
Cool. In fact, you could say this is our inaugural kickoff.
Yeah!
40th anniversary of Dark Castle.
You heard it here first.
You did actually. It's true.
We're showing the boxes now.
Yeah.
Were you aware that Glypha 3 was released on Steam like last year?
Which one?
Glypha 3, which is a Joust clone that was released on the Mac back then. But it's now on Steam, like a modern edition, but it's still a monochrome graphics.
Yeah.
No, I'm going for color. The characters, the original Dark Castle characters were 32 pixels tall in black and white, and these characters now I'm doing are 240 tall in color. Although I'm doing, I'm going to do index color, and it's going to be hand drawn and pixel art. It's not going to, I was going to do 3D models and then do it, but I thought it'd be good if it was like the original creators back and he's plus
240 pixels. That's half the size of the Mac screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked that up, but the Mac screen was what? It's 512 by 342, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I have some animations, and I have the original. I don't know if you remember the Dizzy dance he did, and I have the characters about like this. It's so small. It's hilarious. But I'm using that to basically rotoscope it in, and then we're going to lay in all the original navigation, then figure out what the game wants to be. We're going to have to do something to bring it into the 21st century, but I got to find that fine line to make sure that the folks who remember the original, and then for people who come and pick it up now, there's something exciting for them. As you know, Dark Castle was in the 80s. It was games were super hard. Dark Castle was ridiculously hard. And I don't know how that will go over. We'll see. We'll do lots of testing and stuff, but we got to figure out how we deal with that.
You got to keep the original sounds.
Yeah. I have all the original sounds from the original one, and
I love them. I just love it.
It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, that one I love it. Yeah, loving them.
Mark, there's probably a way to balance the difficulty because in the sequel, there's kind of more of a life meter kind of situation. It wasn't just like a one-hit kill, or something. So maybe there's like easy mode or something for the first one that might be you don't maybe get achievements or something the same way, or I don't know. I'm not an expert.
When Ben and I get the game up and running, which hopefully is in the next couple of months here, we've got parts of it up and running, but we should have the ability to run around rooms and stuff. We don't have all the enemies and everything, but run around the rooms and have the game just kind of tell the games. When you're making games, they kind of tell you what they want to be, and you got to listen to them. And there it is.
Yeah,
a great haul.
I can't believe you didn't log in. You should have set your date to Christmas Day, Joe.
Oh yeah, you get the Christmas.
So you see the Easter egg.
Big back then.
Yeah, but. Mark, you've created so many great games over the years, but what type of games did you play in your youth? And do you think that those experiences informed who you became as a developer?
Oh, absolutely. First off, in my youth, there were no video games until high school. And across the street from us at a tennis club from my school, they had a Pong. And I would ditch class and go play Pong until I was out of my lunch money. And I got heavily into that, and that kind of sparked my brain into that. And then later on in art school in Chicago, Space Invaders, I played that a lot. There weren't a lot of games, right? I played Space Invaders, but I also played a lot of pinball. And there's that Fonzie's pinball, the 8-ball it's called. And between my house and the L station, the train stop, was a bar that was open 24/7, and they had a 8-ball in it, 8-ball pinball game. And it happened a couple times where on my way to school in the morning, I would go stop off and play the pinball, and I would spend all of my train money. I would have to go back home until my roommates came home so I could borrow money to go to school. But then I got heavily into Dave Toyer's Tempest. When I was working at Real Time Design, which are the people with that Z-Grass machine, they had a Tempest right next door at some restaurant or whatever it was. And Pac-Man, of course. And I played those a lot. And, just whatever arcades throughout the years, Big and Street Fighter, just so many arcade games, Burger Time, all of those. And, there was just I don't know how to describe it, and people today probably can't understand it, but I was just mesmerized by just pixels on the screen and being able to, change colors, move things, animate things, color cycle things. And it was just fun making that stuff. And there was always some game I was playing, but mostly it was arcade games. And I tend towards casual games. I'm not a big console game player. I love mobile games generally, and I think the whole world's gotten more and more casual in terms of gameplay. I mean, you go to the arcade now and it's super casual. Still friends with Eugene Jarvis over at Raw Thrills and aware of everything they're doing, keep in touch with him. And, there's big, exciting packages now with tons of light and everything, but the games are so casual. It's just really about getting tickets. But I do tend towards casual games. I also like working on smaller teams. The team that we had for Lego 2Gate Drive got up to 160 people, and I was in charge of all these people all over the globe, and it all got out the door and worked great. But I'm having a gas right now. Ben and I are working together, just the two of us, just like John Gay and I did. At some point, I'm going to need to get some help, I think, with some of the art. But I really like smaller teams, and so I think the arcade kind of got me in that mode with more casual games, smaller teams, and then lastly, too. The arcade taught me about performance games. That is to say, the goal of this contraption is to make money. And you had to figure out a way to make some kind of thing that would make somebody come across the room, want to touch this inanimate object, want to put a quarter in the inanimate object. And then after 90 seconds, after it took their quarter, they wanted to play again. And that was a big part of it, too. And all of us at Atari just loved you put the game on test, and if it was doing well, you'd start working all night long to get the thing to earn more. And over about 6-week field trial, you could probably increase the earnings by about 20%. And so there was a game there also as a developer to have a game make a lot of money. And that kind of maps itself to mobile. And I know for console people, they all hate MTX or IAP or whatever you want to call it, in-app purchases. But I love that kind of thing. And I think it just shows that you have something that people want to play. So I think the arcade playing arcade games got me in that casual mode, smaller teams, and then also figuring out how get people to vote with their quarters was a big lesson.
I just kind of have a follow-up question to that. Like, obviously, pre-arcade games, was there like any board games or anything like that that kind of visually caught your? I mean, as an artist, kind of visually caught your attention, or?
Well, my father sold. He had a nostalgia bookstore, and he sold out old comics and old radio shows. And so I grew up going to Chicago Comic Book Convention, which we ran, and so I was buried in comics and that whole side of fantasy there. As far as board games and stuff, I'm just a regular kid playing Life and Monopoly and all those kind of things. Nothing really like that. And really my whole impetus for getting into video games, I loved the screen glowing and changing pixels on the screen. I don't know how to define it. Just the fact you could do stuff like that just mesmerized me. And I still do it now. I'll pull 10 and 12-hour days here working on what I'm working on now because I love it. And it's very tedious and slow. I don't know. It's a disease I have.
Okay. All right, so I have a question about Silicon Beach Software. When did you join us, and tell us about all that fun stuff?
Yeah, Charlie Jackson and Hallie was his wife, and Jonathan Gay was there, and Eric Zocker. Eric's the guy who did Real Sound, which was on Dark Castle. I think it was basically just the four of them in a tiny little office, and they had done Airborne Strike or something, some airborne game that John and them had done. And Dark Castle was his second game, I think he was doing, and he just called me up because we were all over Macworld magazine and stuff, so I was known, and it was also known that I was available, and so he reached out to me, and I just said, yeah, sure, I'd love to do a game, and I had done some ports. I did before I did or in between doing Professor Pac-Man at Midway, and before I did Macromind, and also a little bit after Macromind, I worked on some ports. I did a ColecoVision port, Richard Scarry's electronic workbook, but I did the Macintosh version of Epic's Winter Games, which I did. I don't know. All those gigs were ridiculous. This company called Action Graphics, they'd signed all these contracts and got this money, and it was time to turn the games in, and they didn't have anything done. So I went there and I literally stayed up for weeks on end and just got the stuff up. I did the Epic's Winter Games for them. I don't know what was the question again. I'm sorry, I lost it.
All right. So the question was about Silicon Beach software.
Oh yeah, so he knew me from all that work. That's what was my point to bring that all up. He knew me from all that work, and they flew me out there, and I met with him literally just for. I got there at night, and the next day I met with him and Jonathan Gay and the whole company, 4 people, and did that pitch. And then I don't know, some weeks later he wrote me back, and we got a contract written up, and then we started working on it, and then that did very well for him. And then I think they started on SuperCard first. I'm not sure. I think they did SuperCard before Super Paint because HyperCard was all the rage. That was going to change the world.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of curious. I still look back on that one. I don't remember it very well, but I never got that product. I mean, I understood what it was, but I was like, this isn't. I don't know what it's a. I could have a box full of note cards, I guess, if I wanted.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did SuperCard first, and then we did Beyond Dark Castle. Then their big thing was Super Paint. And the reason I ended up being able to buy the rights to Dark Castle was because somewhere along the line, while they were doing Super Paint, there was a gentleman named Joe Williams who had a company called Delta Tau. I think he was just an individual. Yeah, and he, I guess, traded some algorithm they used in Super Paint for the rights to Dark Castle. And then that's when he did the color version of Dark Castle, and then he did with the 2 Zacks, and then he did the Return to Dark Castle, which he started in the late 90s, and they didn't get it finished until 2008. They worked on it at their own pace, and they got it out there. We finally got it out there. So, and I'm not sure when he shut down Silicon Graphics, or Silicon Beach, but
Yeah.
You know, that was all I knew about it, really. And I've reached out to him. We've been in touch a few times here and there. I've spoken with him a few times. He's retired, and I think he was doing some investing for a while. And I think John Gay has a farm up in Northern California with some kind of heirloom beef or something. I'm not sure what it is.
Wow.
That's all I know about. I mean, honestly, I spent 3 days with Jonathan Gay. I spent probably the same 3 days with Charlie and Eric. I did not see a lot of FaceTime, and I was in Chicago or in Northern California, and they were down in San Diego. So I've never really was in there. You know, they kept it. We were working together on Beyond Dark Castle and everything, but that's it. I finished up Beyond Dark Castle when I was working at Atari is when I finished it. That was a grueling part of my life at that point.
So this comes with my question a little bit. What are the more obscure projects you work on while you were there?
Where at Atari?
Silicon Beach. I'm sorry. Yeah, Silicon Beach.
The only 2 projects I did was Beyond and Dark Castle and Beyond. That's it. Those only 2. Okay. And I did those. We did work from home. I had my little Mac at home, and I sat there and drew and then sent off the floppy disks. That's all. Nice. I mean, I was at Silicon Beach literally twice in my life only was I at their office. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Wait, you mean work from home isn't like a new thing?
No.
Yeah. So I'm curious about how Dark Castle went from a concept to like a must-play title, and what were some of the inspirations that helped you form your vision of the game? You talked about, I walked in and drew it on the whiteboard and that was it, but like there's got to be more story to that.
Yeah. Well, I basically, it was the conglomeration also of a lot of games I played, like the Birds Flying was a poor attempt at Galaga. And, we had the Barrel Room, which was basically Donkey Kong, which I played a lot of Donkey Kong and Galaga there was a club called Neo in Chicago, which is a new wave club. And we go there every night. And the guy who was the engineer on Professor Pac-Man, we go there and drink scotch and do other things and play Galaga all night long. And so I leaned on what few games were already out there and just thought of constructs that worked. And, basically puzzles. Every room is a puzzle, and you just come up with a puzzle. And I don't know, it was just fortuitous. Everything worked. I think also at that point in time, it was so early in video games, you didn't have to, come up with something super creative. And also there were not that many games on the Mac. There was Deja Vu and a few other games. And this was kind of the only action game on the Mac. There was Balance of Power,
Mhm.
was the other one that was out at that time. And so, and then also Macworld was very supportive of it. And we were always in the top of the charts, but I think for about 4 years, we were in the top 5 for 4 years with Beyond and Dark Castle. And, I think so part of it, I think, had to be there was no other games on the Mac really, or action games on the Mac. And it was fun. Even though I've done a lot of games, that's a game that, well, not anymore as people are getting older, but that's the one I seem to be most known for. Also, we didn't have copy protection on it, which was huge. I don't know. We sold probably 500,000 copies or something. I was talking with Charlie. We're trying to figure it out, which doesn't sound like, I think it's maybe 300 to 500,000 copies, which doesn't sound like much. But at that point in time, there was only 1 million Macs. And I believe that probably the other 700,000 Macs or 500,000 Macs probably.
We were pirating them. Yep.
Yeah, and I met so many people who were like my age who bought the Mac, and then the kids of those people grew up playing Dark Castle because their dad had the Mac, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was just fortuitous. It's kind of that whole first to market kind of thing, part of it. And the game also looked amazing for its time compared to all the magenta and green Windows games, text-based Windows games, and everything.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
we benefited from that same thing, the fonts and the sound and all that kind of stuff, and the mouse controller. It was a right. I think timing had a lot to do with it. So and that's like every game. You never know. I mean, you think every game you work on is going to do well, and it doesn't. Some do and some don't. And that one did well. So.
In developing Dark Castle, did you find that the limitations of the Macintosh as a platform for arcade games, like we spoke about the resolution earlier, but what about the animation speed? Like the crew, often give you some feedback about like the size of the art assets that you had to do, or limit your frame rate and your animations. How did it work out? Was there a lot of back and forth on this?
Yeah, no, we never had any performance issues on Dark Castle. It's a very light game. There's a background, and then there's these little characters that were 32 pixels tall. And I don't recollect ever Jonathan saying to me, hey, you gotta make this smaller or whatever. And also, we were just one screen, right? So it was just one screen. It wasn't like we had. I don't even know if we could have done scrolling backgrounds.
Well, you did in Beyond Dark Castle, though.
Yeah, that's right. We did in Beyond. I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, the swamp waves and the forest waves and the catacombs. Yeah. What I'm doing with the new one is I'm taking about 24 rooms, the best rooms, I think, from Beyond Dark Castle and Dark Castle, and starting with those kind of and strung them together in a hopefully interesting way. And I'm going to modify them and stuff. And I think we'll have a little bit more scrolling, but I don't know. I got to wait and see until we get the thing up and running what exactly we're going to do.
Cool.
And I think VideoWorks as well even pushes the boundaries even further, like bigger graphic assets that refresh on the screen. And you mentioned you did a lot of artwork on this.
Yeah, I do remember VideoWorks. I did have to be careful. You could bog down VideoWorks very easily by just if you had big images, big bitmaps. And so I do remember that there was limitations on what you could do in VideoWorks. Of course, it got better with the 512K Mac, and then went after that. But it was always, VideoWorks was kind of. In fact, today when I use Director, I still kind of remember some of the glitches that would happen if I do too much stuff, and I still save off more than I probably need to, just because I remember losing a lot of work.
Mac bomb.
VideoWorks had performance issues, that's for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's great. I'm on this big fat PC and it's working fine. But now there's no more support for it. There's no support. It looks like Adobe took every information off the web and everything. They scrubbed it completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I do a lot of Adobe stuff through my day job, and just the flames on the side of my face, flaming, burning flame. Never mind. It's awful.
Yeah, Adobe used to be a nice company.
Yeah.
Now it's the devil.
Just very painful. Very painful.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Speaking of feedback, what feedback did you receive from fans after like Dark Castle and such was published,
Yeah.
and
I
did
had
that
so many people
feedback really translate into elements and stuff that made it to the sequel?
No, you mean, well, for the thing I'm doing now, it's been so long, I haven't heard any feedback for decades, but it wasn't like it, back then you used to software, actually you would finish making the software and then you would release it and you would never work on it anymore. And as you know, now we're all basically slaves to all these companies as beta testers for their half-finished software, and which drives me nuts. And then also you have something called live ops, where you try to make as much money by selling people game passes and things like that.
Right.
And so there was never any of that back then. You kind of released it. The feedback we got was what we saw in the charts, and the same thing with the arcade. You look at the charts, which games are the most popular games, what are selling the most units, and that was your feedback. We had a lot of articles on Dark Castle, and so there was that kind of thing. So it was well known. And then I would meet fans, or a lot of times I'd meet the kids of the guy who bought the Mac, who grew up playing the game, and they loved it. They had great memories of it.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Well, I mostly mean because you've got a lot of situations where people be like, we got those AOL people, there's no pleasing them, or those CompuServe folks with their negative comments, they should all go to Prodigy. It's so there were like small pockets of online communities and Usenet and Newsgroup.
I did not get involved to the internet until probably in the early 90s, I think, with ARPANET and all that stuff. That was early. I was aware of those other things, but I was too busy doing,
But I don't think I've seen any negative comments about Dark Castle. It's a cherished game, and it's one of the few ones that are arcadey like. So it stands out.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that goodwill, we can rekindle that goodwill, and then also what I deliver, makes those people happy and also attracts new people to it. I'm really, like I said, I decided after this last gig that I'd like to, I'm getting old now and everything, and I'd like to make a final statement, not a final, but a statement with this, and take, a property that I know is one of my better loved games, and bring it into the 21st century. And do an excellent job at it. And it's been really nice because I haven't sold it to a publisher yet, and I'm just doing what I want to do, and I'm working with Ben, and we're figuring out the things we want to work for, and we're just shooting for excellence, and no schedule right now. Although I would love to get it out. I think 86 was when it came out, so it'd be nice if it could be in 26 for the 40th anniversary would be very cool. But if it's not ready, it's not ready. We'll see. But
you have till December 31st at 11:59 p.m.
Exactly.
You can make it.
Yeah.
So it'll be available on which BBS for download?
Right now, that's TBD. Well, yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Right now, I'm just thinking Steam, but I don't know. That's probably the way to go. And see if anybody salutes it. Go into that Steam program and try to build up an audience and social around it and everything, and hopefully get enough people to justify continuing working on it. And then I'd like to
you have at least 5 people here who are absolutely blast the crap out of it when you're ready to
We'll
be all over the place with that.
The vintage and that's something I will say is that you've got connection to the vintage Macintosh community now, and those are the people that will absolutely put this on blast. For our community and beyond. So leverage those like vintage connections and stuff, because they won't just buy it, they'll talk about it. So,
well, we're for sure going to do that. And when we sold Return to Dark Castle, I forget, I think it was 2006 or 8 or something like that, I got a mailing list of about 30,000 people that purchased and wrote us or something. And so I'm going to hi, every broken garage, thank you. I will. We're going to start surfacing that once we have something to show, and we're still debating whether or not we want to do a Kickstarter, or just go ahead and bootstrap the whole thing. I don't know. I'm kind of not worried about that right now. I'm most concerned about the quality and the look of the game, and once I get that, and as I've learned throughout my career, if you have a great product, all good things happen after that. And so we'll see where it goes. But yeah, definitely got to start gearing up the social stuff probably by the end of this year. To get some awareness going for it.
awesome.
100%.
Or I just keep working on it for the rest of my life, making it perfect. My magnum
Oh,
magnum
no.
opus that's never finished.
Don't Schenectady, New York this. Get it out.
Yeah.
Great is the enemy of good, remember? So I'm curious if you would be willing to talk a little bit more about your collaboration with Jonathan Gay. You mentioned you only met him a couple times. I'm curious how that affected your collaboration.
Well, he was, again, I only met him 3 times, so I'm basing my assessment of his personality from that and then talking to him on the phone. But he's a very shy fellow, incredibly smart. He had just graduated from Harvey Mudd College and worked in Silicon Beach was his first job. And he's a very quiet guy, very soft-spoken, and very agreeable. We talk on the phone quite often. I'd send him a disc. When he got the disc, he'd call me and we'd walk through it. And then he'd work on it for a week or so and then send me a disc back. And so, I don't know, we had over 6.5 to 9 months or whatever it was. I forgot how long it was. We had, conversations a couple times a week or whenever he had questions. And very nice fellow. And I never got to know him really. That's kind of how that was. A very, very unique kind of, cloistered way of developing. And then, Eric Zocker was really great too. Eric Zocker was a real energetic guy. He's a guy who figured out real sound, which again, the audio in that game is something I think a lot of people love and remember because it was so weird. And we got the voice who did that was one of now there's probably been a lot, but the voice actor who did all those sounds supposedly was also, I don't know what his name was. I forgot. It says it on the box somewhere, but he was the voice of Fred Flintstone for a while in the cartoon.
Dick Noel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so he had done Fred Flintstone also. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people who did Fred Flintstone over the years, but that was the claim to fame there. But Eric was a very gregarious guy, and I actually think I saw him more at shows and stuff. And it all happened very easy. There was very little friction throughout the whole thing, very little interaction. We just, draw a bunch of pictures and I'll make it work. And then Charlie released it and it sold well. And we were number 1 and the other ones did all well too. And it was like, we got great reviews and, it was an easy birth without a doubt. I never got to know John really. I talked to him. Oh, it was funny, Joe Williams, who I bought the rights from. I guess he has Delta Tau, and I think he's kind of a spiritual guy or whatever. I don't know his whole story. I don't know him that well, but it was pretty funny. I said they wanted to buy the rights, and he made me call up Jonathan to see if it was okay with Jonathan, even though Jonathan had no veto power or anything on it. But he really wanted everybody to be okay with me owning it, and and be a steward of it. So that was another interesting point there. So I had to call up Jonathan Gay, and I had to call up the 2 Zachs, and yeah.
Cool.
Next question. Can you explain why there did not seem to be a multitude of platformy arcadey clones on the Mac following Dark Castle's footsteps? Because you see a lot of examples throughout history, like Pac-Man is released and you see a billion maze-like clone games. Doom is released and then you see like 20,000 Doom clones. Why did this not happen on the Mac, you think?
My assessment is this. We did Dark Castle, and then, in my opinion, I think Prince of Persia came out kind of copying it.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then that went on to other platforms. And I think the problem was that the Mac was never really a serious gaming platform.
Yeah.
And so also it wasn't color. And I think, people gravitated to whatever at the time, Commodore 64 or the what was that thing? Spectrum or something.
Specky, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And some of those games. And Sega had their thing at the time. And so I don't think the Mac was really a gaming platform ever really. And I still think to this day it's the case. There's certainly people that play games and you get games for it, but it's not a gaming platform. And I also know too, like even Apple Arcade has limited. It's successful, but it's not like majorly successful, right? It's not the game platform. So I think the whole games business kind of gravitated more towards whatever other platforms were out there.
Yeah.
That's my assessment of it.
But you say this with hindsight, but you still went into business at the very start of the Mac years, in the second year of the Mac. And
Oh, yeah. Well, we
were
did it
you
before.
hoping that it would become some kind of a gaming
No,
platform
we were just young and stupid, and
Fair.
Mark and Jay
Okay.
and I loved the tools that we had at Dave Nutting Associates, and Music Calc had come out, and Mark was an audio guy, and he wanted to do a version of Music Calc, and it was just the three of us that did it, and we got MusicWorks up and running, and then we also did VideoWorks, and we benefited from being, MusicWorks was available at launch with the 128K, and so we did well with that. And then as far as Dark Castle, we were also crazy nuts because I think the original Dark Castle had 2 discs, right?
Yep.
Which was insane. I mean, nobody had, there were very few 2-disc products out there. And to have a game that was 2 discs was just crazy. And, probably a decent publisher would have said, we're not going to do 2 discs. It's too expensive. Make it fit on 1, right? But, we just did it, and Charlie went along with it. So, it's purely love. And that's the whole thing I'm saying about how I've looked back on my career now. In that first 10 years, I've kind of gone back to doing what I did in those years, as opposed to all my VP stuff and executive producer stuff. And it was just pure joy of this amazing device, that, and it caught the world by storm back then. I'm sure you all remember. I mean, it was just,
I was there.
so it was purely just for love like that. And, Charlie paid us, I can't remember how much, a fair wage to make the game. And then we got a royalty on it. That was fair. But, I didn't. And so to that degree, I did do it to pay the rent and stuff. But I mean, I wasn't thinking, I'm going to be, fabulously wealthy from this or famous from this. It was just another job, if you will. So, and I'd already been involved with pitching games and doing games and done a number of games by that time. But we were just naive and just went for it. We were mesmerized by the technology and by the platform. There was just the excitement of working on that stuff. We had the first one we started programming VideoWorks was all on the Lisa because we didn't have Macs back then. They had the Lisa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So VideoWorks was programmed. Jay did that on the Lisa. I had a Lisa to draw too. That was really clunky.
Now Lisas are
wow.
expensive, Phil.
Yeah.
Hey, my question is, did you have an involvement in porting the game to other platforms, or was that more a task entrusted to partners in the industry? I think you said
I was not involved with that. EA did a really crappy Sega port. I actually did hear about the Amiga port, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but Mike Schwartz. So what happened was Jeff, who's the guy who started Retro Studios in Austin? Jeff. Anyway, he was the original engineer who was supposed to port to the Amiga, and he failed. And so they hired this Mike Schwartz guy to finish up the Amiga version. And the Amiga version kind of looked okay. But then the other ones, didn't look okay. Yeah, 360, yeah. There it is.
And the box is the same for GS, Amiga, and Atari.
B Amiga Sector 1. Yeah, I haven't seen this for decades. Yeah. This looks like they just kind of copied it more, so that's good. The other ones, I think the Sega one, they tried to do something different.
Yes, it is. It's very much like, because Jordan Mechner will kind of say that same thing, like where it's like when Prince of Persia got out to the other, like ported to other platforms, everybody wanted to put their own little sauce on it. And you ended up with some very inconsistent sort of
look at this
product by the time it was done. Yeah.
He has red hair. He's a ginger. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The one thing is, I don't know, did they call him Duncan in those versions? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I always called him, wow, look how fast they have the wings flapping. That's stupid.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Well, it's this can't be they can't beat it in a weekend. We gotta Lion King this up a bit to make sure they come back to Blockbuster at least 3 times. 3 times.
Yeah, so I wasn't involved in any of those ports. I kind of saw them all
Yeah.
after they came out. And I don't think they did the franchise any favors, but I thought the color version was good. And basically, those guys just colorized it. And then also, I thought Return to Dark Castle was a noble attempt, although it just had the old style gameplay. And I think back in the mid 2000s, it was just way too hard. Now with Steam, it seems like there are big enough niche markets that like precise puzzlers and other type of games and platform games and retro. So I'm hoping there's a big enough audience out there to justify it. That, and also that I find some happy middle ground to keep old folks happy and the new folks happy.
Here's what you do. You just tell people it's not Dark Castle. It's Demon Souls. It's because there is the genre, or there is that community of people that like, I want a challenge.
Oh yeah,
and they have, a lot of these folks have gone back and played like kind of Nintendo hard.
Yeah.
The term, where it's just like, I really want a challenge. And these older games, like, they were like, like, we're gonna give you something you've got to kind of aspire to get good. And so don't be afraid to like just put something out there and just let people beat their head against the wall with it, because
we'll see. I'd like to do it as close to the original as possible in terms of I think there is a place for that. I also think that I'm working with Ben on it, and all the offsets are very precise. He goes up the stairs very precisely, down the stairs. He swings on the rope, and you have to, to do a jump, you have to be exactly at the right place, otherwise you'll fail. And there's all this stuff going on, and we hit the right level of kind of frustration and challenge with Dark Castle, and hopefully we can do that in modern times now. But I think that there's a big enough audience out there who likes a challenge now. But as you remember, in the 80s, all games were so hard. I mean, you would tell people, did you beat the game? You ask people if you beat the game, and that you had to beat the game. You played Defender, you played all these games, and they were really hard.
I think close to half the NES games were harder than Dark Castle, but I was still proud to beat it the first time. I think back in '87 or something.
Aiming to those birds was difficult.
Yeah. I gotta have the right amount of rocks. I gotta conserve my rocks.
Right.
But you can farm the rocks. There's a special place for it.
Yeah, it's I'm real curious once I get it up to play it and see where it wants to go. But I want to stick with it anyway. So I've been working with Ben on it. It's very precise, and he's going, God, because most platformers, people just bounce around, right? Like Mario bounces around. It's not, if he goes up the steps, he just bounces up the steps. And we had this very precise thing, and that was what got you, because you'd have to figure out, I'm going to go halfway up the steps, wait for the rat to go by, and then I'll run up and throw something. We had to. There was a whole strategy to every room. And I'm definitely going to pay homage to that. It's still going to be the kind of thing that you want to get into the room and out of the room, and it's going to take you 9-10 times, if that, more even maybe, to figure out. And you get to the end, and then you can die, right? So and I realize now, roguelike, right, is a whole genre of game now. And I didn't know I was doing a roguelike game back then. I was just doing a game. That's what we are, is roguelike, right? You go all the way back to the beginning. So I'm going to do that for sure. Yeah. There's no way to buy through the game either. It's going to be just, and we're keeping it simple. Single player platformer. Not going to do network anything. I'll probably have high scores, but that's it. And single player platformer. And just keep it simple and just try to make it look beautiful. So, if it looks gorgeous, then people play. That's part of the reason people play Dark Castle, I think, because it was so amazing in its day of how it looked.
So speaking of the Dark Ages, in the early 2000s, Super Happy Fun got the rights back to the series.
Yeah.
What was it like revisiting the property?
Well, you create all this stuff. If you're in the games business, you don't end up owning most of the games you work on. And I knew the game was no longer huge. I knew Joe Williams. I knew they had done the color version. I knew they were working on Return to Dark Castle. And to my understanding, Joe was kind of frustrated. The two Zacks were slow in delivering. They were delivering it at their own pace. I think they worked on it for like 8 years, and when I bought the rights back in whatever it was, 2004 or whatever it was, or 2000, I don't know when I bought them back. When I bought them back, I started working with the Zax, with Z-Sculpt software. And it was really frustrating for me too. They were doing a great job and they were working on it, but they were doing it at their own pace. And it took 2 years. It was supposed to be ready in like 6 months, but it was really 2 years before it was ready. And so I was very happy to have it back, and it was very nice to have, and we cut a nice deal where they made some money too, and we released the game. But I always wanted to go back and do another version. And actually at Super Happy, I did a couple of treatments, 3D version of it, and a couple other versions. We did the Brew version for mobile phones, also with Bondi. But that, the mobile phones were so challenged, it was ridiculous. So I've always wanted to go back and just make it happen. And I was just very proud to be able to acquire the franchise that I created. And I now want to, kind of make a big statement with that, and hopefully, find an audience for it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Agree. Ron,
it's your turn.
I'm with you. I was just
Okay.
letting things settle. It's okay.
Okay.
So, would you tell us a little bit about, just shifting away kind of from strictly like game development, but would you tell us a little bit about your role in co-founding Macromind and about the early days of the multimedia revolution?
Yeah. As I said, Jay Fenton and myself and Mark Canner all worked at Dave Nutting Associates, which was a subcontractor to Bally Midway. And Mark had done the audio for Professor Pac-Man, which was the game I was working on. And Jay was off of Gorf, and I think he was trying to do something new, but he couldn't get it going. It just wasn't going well for him. Everybody loved him because Gorf was a big success, but we all decided to, Mark, I think, was already let go because we were done with the audio, but I was still working there. I was doing a prototype for a Laserdisc game, and Jay was still working there, but we decided, Mark got some money from his in-laws, very little amount. And the three of us quit and just started working on it. And I worked out of my apartment, Jay worked out of his house, and Mark worked out of his house in Chicago. And we'd go meet up and work and get together and plan on it. And Jay was the engineer and a genius. He has since transitioned to Jamie Fay, is his name now. And Jamie Fay is a brilliant programmer. And also, I think, probably the driving force behind the whole design. A lot of the design came off of what we did with MusicWorks, where you have that grid. And so that kind of morphed out of that. I did all the art and the graphics and everything. Plus, I was the first animator on VideoWorks, right? And so I would work with Jay and say, hey, I want something like this, and that's a good idea. And he'd come to me with ideas, and we'd spitball it back and forth, and then he'd implement it, and I'd try it out, and it would stick. So Mark did the audio for all the audio stuff, but Mark's role really was, what he transitioned into was, after we got going, was basically Jay and I working. And what Mark did, he flew around the country doing business development. And so he would go to all the shows and hawk it and meet with people and meet with Apple and do all this. And I think was very instrumental in the success that we had in the marketplace. But mostly Jay and I back there. Mark would come back and work and put in his 2 cents on it. But it was mostly Jay, and then I came in there with the graphics and just first beta tester, if you will, and I was animating and find out problems and bugs. I don't know if Hayden even had QA or not. Oh, and then I worked on the manual also with we flew out to wherever it was in Massachusetts that Hayden Software was. And I worked on the manual with a guy named Nick Laveroff, and we did the manual for VideoWorks. And then we released that, and it did okay. I think MusicWorks actually did better because it demoed so well. And I think in the store, you go into the store and you see it, and you just buy it for $29 or whatever it was. And then we continued to work on it, and then we needed some more money, and Mark went to his in-laws again and got some more money. And I then found out I had to get diluted, which I was a young kid from art school, and I didn't know what dilution was. I now understand it's very typical. And I got all upset and bent out of shape. I had been his best man at his wedding, but got all bent out of shape and basically left in a huff. And then we cut a deal where I got royalties and stuff. But I bowed out of there after a couple of years. And really, it was up to Mark and Jay, and really Mark going around and pushing that whole multimedia revolution. That happened. I mean, we were at the forefront of that. I think right before that was desktop publishing was the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was before that was the HyperCard, but all these big things, kind of like how CD-ROMs got really big. Remember, I mean, here's a slow, small storage device, and we're going to change the world. Oh, that's not quite like AI.
We had Graham Devine on, the world's #1 CD-ROM salesperson a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And so it's seventh guess. It sold a lot of CD-ROM drives. So.
I remember at Atari, we started messing with Laserdisc games because that Dragon's Lair did so well. And we were going to do a Laserdisc game. And we were trying to use, instead of a big Laserdisc, we wanted to use a CD-ROM. And the only way it could fit on a CD-ROM, because I think the capacity was smaller at first, the only way it could fit on a CD-ROM is if we used compression. And right around the corner from us was this company, was it C-Cubed? I think it was C-Cubed, who invented MPEG audio and video.
Oh, wow.
And we met with them, and we tried to compress stuff and put it on a CD-ROM. And then, Laserdisc games, the way they work is it's basically a needle drop, right? Like, I don't know if you ever played Mad Dog McCree or you played Dragon's Lair. Basically you come to a decision point, you say, I want to go here, and then it drops the needle onto over here. Well, that works on a Laserdisc because nothing is encoded.
Yeah.
And what we found out was that the CD-ROM, when I encoded the MPEG stuff on there, there's a frame of video, which is a complete frame, and then there's these differential frames that only show what stuff has changed. And if you did a needle drop, if you were lucky, you would land on the good frame, but more often than not, there were more in between frames, and so that technology didn't work for us on that.
Yeah,
but,
it's the difference between analog and digital.
Yeah,
and I get it.
I had done what I did at Atari. We had a van, and we had 5 video cameras, and I had them weld something. We mounted 5 video cameras on the front of the van. Then we drove through mountain roads. And what I was going to do is when you steered the arcade game, you would jump from one camera stream to the other. But of course, we never got that far because of the whole MPEG problem, and we had to kill that project. But it was fun driving around the hills with 5 cameras.
Oh, yeah.
Well, talking about the technology and the lasers, are you saying, have you always been an arcade fan then? And what was one of your favorite projects from working at Atari?
Well, Pit Fighter was a lot of fun because it was so successful. Road Blasters was the first game that I did there. And what was fun about that is that I was new at Atari, and Bonnie Smithson, who was the engineer, was new at Atari. And the word at Atari always was that the first game a team doesn't work. They say the first one sticks to the griddle. That's the postulate they go with, like with pancakes, right? The first one's going to be the best one. Yeah. However, it went out there and was a hit. And so that was a lot of fun. Clax I really liked because Hide Nakajima, the president, had asked, Tetris was popular at that time, and he wanted a puzzle game, and it was August, and he wanted a puzzle game to have at the ATEI show, which is in January, so 4 months later. And he asked everybody at Atari, who wants to do it? And I raised my hand like an idiot. And we did it. And so Dave Akers, who worked with me on Escape from the Planet of the Robot Monsters, was the only other engineer. We had Tim Hubbardsty on hardware. And the 3 of us in 4 months came up with Clax, and that did pretty well. And it was ported to just about every platform because it was such an easy game to do. So that's a good memory. And the Pit Fighter. And then after I became VP, it was a real struggle. Atari really sucked in the early 90s. And finally, we were working on Area 51, and that game saved the company. And, everybody, after I got the job, we had to rebuild product development. We had to get all new computers, and we had to come up with new games. And Area 51, we did incredibly well for everybody in the food chain. and Atari was real dedicated to it. We put it on test in May, and it did not do well. And management there at the time, the executives said, "No, we like this. We're going to work on it." We relaunched it in November, and it made a lot of money. We changed the cabinet and a few other things. So that was a big success because that then started the comeback of Atari games up in Milpitas. And so, then we did also San Francisco Rush was the big game that did well for us. We revived the Gauntlet franchise. Hoop It Up was a little mechanical game that we did that did well. So I think as far as what I felt proudest of was, number one, the games I did myself, like Road Blasters and Pit Fighter and Clax. But then when we got the company to turn around and had great success for the company, that was really, really very rewarding. It was rewarding too because all the people who stayed, there's a real esprit de corps there that we saved it. So that was good. There's Road Blasters.
Yeah.
That game was fun. I developed that. Dave Toyer, who did iRobot and Tempest, there was a 3D hardware at Atari in various states. And, Hard Driving was the first 3D game we did that did very well, huge hit. But they had this device that was a development kit, a bunch of boards piled up over here, and it had like a trackball and a joystick and a bunch of buttons. And with that, I made a 3D version of that car, very low poly 3D version of that car. And back then they had Garo shading, which was like, wow, you have Garo shading, which is a form of shading you might be familiar with, very rudimentary shading. And I made a car, and then I took pictures of it, or made bitmaps of each position, and that's why the car looks good there. But then I had to go up and touch every single picture to make it look good because it looked like crap. Actually, I worked on a 3D art disc on a Mac. I forgot what that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but anyway, that's how we did that game. Is I generated this 3D car. Also, I love how that road is done. I don't know if you're familiar, but all those roads from that time, it's basically there's all scan lines, and you just draw a triangle, and then it makes it look like curves by just pushing the scan lines left and right. And then we had color cycling for the stripes.
Yeah.
So I love, I'm having so much fun doing Dark Castle again because I love that period where everything was so rudimentary. It's just a much simpler time. Another thing I noticed too is that while I'm working on Dark Castle now, unlike when I worked on it the first time and on VideoWorks, my computer is hooked up to this thing called the internet. And I'm constantly getting interrupted with, pop-ups and messages and emails and texts. And I realized back then it was so pretty because you just had this computer and it wasn't plugged into anything. It was just it was a tool, right? And it was just fun. It was like, a woodworking tool or something that didn't get interrupted by all this other stuff. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. But that whole
nerds
period,
asking for interviews.
well, we can't get rid of it. I wouldn't mind though going back. I'm a big proponent of turning off the internet. I think it would solve a lot of problems. We'd have to write checks again, but I think we'd survive. I remember living before the internet, and
I'm just saying, people say get rid of the internet. It has not made a James or a J.R.R. Like album or Martin novel come out any faster. Like writing it on a 386 has not made him come out any faster.
It's just amazing. But I really like that period. I like smaller teams.
Yeah.
The Road Blasters was half a dozen people at its peak, and on the core team, and Clax was 2 people, and Escape was even just like 3 people, and with the hardware engineer, right? Pit Fighter was our biggest one. I think we got up to like 25 people, which is nothing now. I mean, all these games now. I did a game that was 160, and everybody was whining. This isn't AAA. It only has 160 people. These other games with 500 people, and I don't know. It's a much more pretty time. I love the craftsmanship back then, and just the rudimentary stage of it. Yeah.
I just have a follow-up question for those of us younger in the audience. What's a check?
Oh God. There's no youngers anyway.
It's like an IOU that your bank occasionally takes 15 days to cash.
I told you our big technological advance while doing Dark Castle was FedEx. That was the big
Yeah.
revolution.
Oh yeah.
That's fun.
So they were the first company then, like UPS and stuff didn't exist then.
UPS was there, but it was just a delivery company. I don't
But,
think
yeah, FedEx's big thing is that they would guarantee like same day service and within a certain range and things like that. It was wildly expensive to do that.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it was $18 back then, which
Mhm.
that's the price of a hamburger now, but it was pretty expensive. But for us, it was great because I didn't have to wait for the mail to take 3 days to get there, and vice versa. And
Mm.
so we did do it.
Cool.
They used to have advertisements where they would show like something where it was like trying to like just inside New York City or something like that, that the FedEx courier would get it there within like X amount of minutes versus putting your person in a cab and having them ride in the cab across there to drop
But
something
I
off.
think everything still went through Memphis, right? Everything, even if you were
Mhm.
sending it across town, they'd still send it to Memphis and it would be at New York the next day. Now, maybe they did courier service too,
Yeah.
but it was the same thing. It was the next day, guaranteed next day, and you could get it by 8 or 10 or whatever.
Yeah. Because it was airmail. It was just
Yeah.
like a lot of everything was default airmail. Yeah.
Mhm.
Welcome to the FedEx podcast. I'm your co-host.
The history
Welcome
of-
to this week's episode of Ship It.
So, talking about all these old technologies and old ways of doing things, let's talk about the future for one last question before we get into the questions from our audience, and that is, what do you think the legacy of your games will be?
Well, I don't know. I've had some successes. Dark Castle was reasonable. Pit Fighter was big. I've worked on some other games that have done well. I was instrumental in, Area 51 and San Francisco Rush, although, the teams did those. I think they all affect pop culture to a certain degree. I haven't had anything that's at the level of a Fortnite or a Call of Duty or anything like that. But, Pit Fighter had its influence. Mortal Kombat, I know Ed went and did Mortal Kombat because we did digitize pictures in Pit Fighter. Dark Castle has left its little stain on a number of people. It's very nice when you can have a game that resonates with the public. Nothing feels better. Of course, making money is nice, but it's really nice when you find something that other people find rewarding. And I've been able to enjoy that a few times with the games I've made throughout the years. It's a very hard business. You got to work really hard and you got to get really lucky. So I don't know if it has any long-lasting effect. These are all little songs for most people. They're just little ditties that they played for a while or get addicted to for a while, and that's really nice. I don't know if I've made any great cultural changes. Like I say, I think Ed doing Mortal Kombat, he's definitely said, because we did Pit Fighter with the digitized graphics, although Journey was the first game with digitized graphics in the arcade. So I think that's probably one of the bigger influences. I know Area 51 resonates with a lot of people because everybody made money. Atari made money on it. The operators made money on it. The distributors made money on it. It was a very successful game. And it was also Revolution. It was the first game to have a hard disk in it. And we also did some interesting things with pre-rendered graphics. But I don't know what the lasting impact of that is necessarily. I mean, it's like pop music, right? It just keeps moving along and getting better. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
I think it does. Yes.
One of my favorite memories is, we did Road Blasters. And of course, when you make a game, it's sitting in the lab and it's running all the time, and you hear all the sounds over and over and over again for a year. And I remember being drunk one night and being in a 7-Eleven like at 2 a.m. And I was paying for something, and all of a sudden I heard bing, 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 which is a starting thing. And I look, and there were like 5 or 6 kids at 3 a.m. Not kids, but teenagers or whatever. And they were laughing and having fun playing the game. And I just smiled. It was just a very nice feeling that, to come across something like that. That is all the objects we could have on the screen. I think we'd have about 12 objects on the screen at a time.
Cool.
And it's got that era, because Atari games from that era have a very certain look, like with the fonts, like Tubin and games like that. And we're not afraid to like try something weird.
Yeah, we had 2 hardwares. We had System 1 and System 2. Road
Mhm.
Blasters was on System 1, and System 2 was what Tubin was on. System 2 was a higher resolution version. It was more expensive. I'm trying to think what else was on System 2. Not too many. Marble Madness. I actually, for Escape, I used the Marble Madness playfield editor that Mark Cerny made to make all the levels of Escape. But that was System 1. And we had one font, which is called Sys1AN. And that's that font you see with the little things on it.
Yeah, it's just got it's like completely burned into my brain, like Gauntlet and the sounds and
Gauntlet was System 1, and that's I'm just remembering now too. Paperboy was System 2.
Yeah,
that was John Salwitz and Dave. I can't remember his name. David. I'll remember it anyway. Now that was a magical time. That was the most incredible experience of my life, was working at Atari Games. I got to work with the original people like Ed Logg, who did Centipede and Missile and Gauntlet and Asteroids, and also Dave Toyer, who did iRobot and Tempest, and more importantly, I guess, Missile Command. And I got to work with all those people, and it was amazing. It was a fun place, and we had. We were making hardware. We developed force feedback steering and had the patent on that. And you go in one room and there's people working on computers. We were designing our own chips up till 1990s. So all the chips, there was no such thing as 3DFX, NVIDIA, or whatever. We all made all the chips, and we had our own FPGAs and everything. And then we had our ID group that was making all the cabinets and everything. And then they also were testing different things, different pedals to see how many millions of times you could do a pedal, and coming up with just crazy ideas all along, the trackball and all that stuff. And very creative time, and just very, very wonderful group of people. And the company was really relaxed, maybe too relaxed. There was a bit of a drug culture there. And, but we all had tons of fun. We played real hard. I can't tell you how many times we go out to lunch and we wouldn't come back till like 4, but then everybody would stay till like midnight and work. And it was just,
it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
Because you hear a lot about that, like these development teams where it's like, I don't know, people were sleeping under their desk until noon. Wait a minute, where were they sleeping? It was right, but then they were there until 3 o'clock in the morning. So
I remember I got to tour Capcom when I was a VP at Atari, and they had just done Street Fighter, Champ Edition or whatever. And I got to see their development, which was much different. They had this whole floor of just tiny desks with people right next to each other and just working like slaves on this thing. And the whole floor was filled up, and every single desk had a sleeping bag under it. They had this like apprentice system there that was the envy of all American VPs, to have a staff like that kill themselves. Yeah.
Hey, before we get to audience questions, we forgot one. It's in the description of the YouTube video of the stream.
So
it's, I think Ron wrote, Mark Steven Pierce we will try to learn the secrets to the perfect game of Dark Castle. Like, it begs the question, were you good at your own game, and did you ever beat advanced mode?
Oh yeah, I played all versions all the way through. But it was hard. It was not easy. But I played all the way.
I think the secret is maybe you do the easy run, then it rolls over to medium, but you have a lot of equipment, lots of rocks, and then you can have a standing chance with your elixir count, and then you can go on to advanced.
I think it's a lot, as I remember, and I haven't played it in a couple decades. It's a lot just to be patient. you can't just charge through it. You got to wait till the rope's at the right place, or wait till the bat comes out. And you got to learn the patterns that, once you walk into the room, like remember the stalactite room, the first thing to do is just stand there and first kill all the bats, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was just a procedure with all that stuff that you just had to learn. And I guess that's what people liked, was they could learn it. You could get through there, but if you just charge through it like a platformer, you'll die.
But do you also remember that if you stand on the very first position of the level, oftentimes there's a trap that throws you to the dungeon. So you have to kind of move. So
yeah, or you finally make it to the dungeon. You finally get the keys, but then a 16-ton weight falls on you. You know what I mean? And so and of course you don't get put back to the beginning. You get put back all the way to the beginning. And so, that brutal love, that tough love was it was all the rage.
It's a great teacher.
But I love the details where the guys that are in the dungeons tell you where to go and
they
point you to the place and all that. Those details are.
Yeah, I'm just starting to animate the shovel battle right now, or the mace the shovel battle with the henchmen.
Yeah.
Do that now.
And the little knee animals are so funny.
The odd, what do they call mutants? They're mutants. They're called mutants. Yeah.
Oh, the mutants. Yeah.
Mutants and the rats and the bats and then the guards. Thankfully, there's not too many enemies, because it's taken me a long time to draw all this stuff at the higher resolution.
There's more pixels than before, right?
Oh my God, yes. It used to be 32, and now it's 240.
Mm-hmm.
Each frame is a painting almost, But I'm enjoying it, and I'm dead set on making it look awesome. Try to do as much as I can, but I may need to get help at some point. I think I'm going to call in some help for the backgrounds. We'll see. I haven't decided how I want to do the backgrounds yet. I'm just working on the character to get that all running around. Ben's working with me to get that in the game. We're doing it in Unity. Ben's a really good engineer. Ben Milsted's a very good engineer in Unity. And he came along. I've known him for like 20 years, and we got on the phone, and I told him what I was doing. And he said, "Hey, I'll help." And so it worked out great. Now I'm trying to convince a few other people to join as well. And at some point, I'm really not excited about starting another company. I've started 3 companies in my life, and I really don't want the headache. But I think at some point I might have to again. We'll see. If there's a great game there, it's worth doing. So we'll see where we go with that.
Absolutely.
Nice.
So I played it all the way through on all levels, both games. I don't think I could do that now. I couldn't play Return to Dark Castle through. I was just too busy with other stuff. But I'm just super impressed by whoever put that one playthrough up on YouTube, which I access almost every day and look at it for some tips on stuff. But they play all the way through. They don't die once. It's crazy. I mean,
tool-assisted speed run. They're cheating.
Oh no.
Who knows?
So we have 4 questions from the audience. If you've got a few more minutes,
Sure.
Mark.
Yeah.
2 of them are almost the same question, so I'm going to combine them a little bit. Jeremy's Vintage Hillbilly Shack and Everything is Broken Garage basically ask the same question, but from 2 different angles. Jeremy says, if you were to go into the field that you did, but the present day, how did you go about doing that? And he's asking for his daughter. And then Everything is Broken Garage. He's our friend Ryan up in Newfoundland. He's asking, he's an educator, and then some of his students wanted to get in video game development. Do you have any advice for that generation?
Yeah, don't do it.
There you have it.
Done.
No. First of all, but you do need to love it, because you will be working hard. There's 2 paths. It was funny. I used to have, when I had my company, Super Happy Fun, I had the local college, high school kids would come in on career day, and we'd get all these boys, of course, and I want to do video games. And I said, "Oh, really? Good. What do you want to do?" And they never connected to what they had to do. They liked video games. So I said, "Well, do you want to learn engineering, or do you want to learn art?" And those are, or production, right? Those are the 3 kind of paths. And, back in the day when I started in the early 80s, there were only 1,000 or a couple thousand people making video games. It was not an industry yet. Yeah. Now it's a huge business. Almost every single college has a curriculum, has a course, has a degree. There's some great schools. I know Full Sail is a great place to go. So, if you're interested in the engineering side, I would go for, getting a CS degree. And then if you're on the art side, you start learning, 3D tools, or you could do, pixel stuff, but mostly it's all 3D right now. And, we used to hire people, if we could find somebody who had a CS degree and then they went to Full Sail or DigiPen, which are two video game schools, they were really great people, because Full Sail filters out a lot of the wannabes. There's a lot of people who think they want to do games, but then, they get into it. It's not as much fun as playing games. All they really want to do is play games, which is fine. I'm glad they're there, but it's a lot of work. So the path is really engineering or art. And then you go into finding a job. And a lot of times you've got to get an entry-level internship. And that's what most happens, like on the company I was at, Visual Concepts, which is owned by 2K, which is owned by Take-Two. We would hire interns, or else we also would hire people in the QA department. And even if you're, an engineer, if you're a good engineer, you can hopefully get hired as an engineer. But you may have to go in through the QA department or some other department. Just just get your foot in the door and start working there. And that's probably the best way to go. If you can get the art stuff, you got to get a portfolio up online. And if you've got great work, just make sure you got a website that has all your stuff, and then start applying for jobs. It's a really bad time in the industry right now. There's been tons of layoffs. A lot of people I know are out of work and not finding anything as quickly as they used to. This is kind of a result of COVID. During COVID, the video game business went off the charts. Everybody was stuck at home playing video games, and a lot of the major publishers just hired like there was no tomorrow, built up these huge teams, built up these franchises and everything. And then when COVID ended, now we're back down to 2019 levels of gameplay. It's still very successful. Mm-hmm. Video games are not dying, but now we're back to kind of where we were in 2019. And so there's been a lot of consolidation in the industry. Also, Microsoft bought Blizzard or Activision, whatever. And also they're in a bit of trouble because the top 20 games are all sequels, but the good news is there's platforms like Steam that's democratized publishing. And so you got a lot of independent studios. And I think that's where all the cool stuff's going to come from. And so if you want to go the route of getting a job, get an education, get a either learning to do 3D art or any variation thereof, or learn the engineering, or get into production. And you can actually take production classes for learning how to manage teams and manage video, manage development. Mm-hmm. But you can also just do kind of what I'm doing right now, which is get together with a few guys and start building something. Yeah. Work together and build something. And there's quite a lot of success stories on Steam where 2 or 3 people get together. And, it's not an easy path, and it's not going to happen overnight. But, you put out a beta version, you start building a crowd, and, you get people to feed into it. Maybe you do a Kickstarter. You do it that way. That's probably, I don't know, it's a more interesting way to me right now, certainly. But it's going to be a tough time right now, I think, to get jobs. But I think I've seen these things come and go, and we're just kind of getting over a glut. And there's been a big purge and some readjustments going on. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to work at a big company, you definitely need to get a CS degree and also have your 3D chops down. Yeah. Or production skills, And production, you definitely start in QA and work your way up as a PA, a production assistant, then an associate producer, then a producer, then executive producer, and on above that. And all of this is going to be interesting to see what happens with AI. So, yeah, I know. I hope that answered their questions.
We have one question from Curtis Boyle. What was the first game you did for Color Max, and did you design it for 16 or 256 color?
I never did a Color Mac version. I went after Dark Castle and Beyond Dark Castle. I went to Atari and did coin-op games, and never did a Color Mac version.
Oh,
we released the Color Mac version, but the Z-Sculpt did that. The Color Mac version, the Z-Sculpt did.
And so then that begs the follow-up question. When is Dark Castle color version coming out for the Mac next year before the end of the year?
Well, it is. I don't know yet. I would love to get the game out for the 40th anniversary, and we're working towards that, but we'll see where it goes. I'm not going to release it until it looks great. Amazing. It looks amazing, I should say, because it has to be amazing. And then we'll release it. And if I can get there between now and a year and a year and a half from now, I'll gladly do it. It may be longer. We'll see. But I'd really like to get it out there. I'm excited about it. I've been working on it now for about 6 months. Ben's with me for a couple months right now. Once we get things kind of stabilized over the next few months, probably need more resources on it, which means we'll need more money, which means, I got to get back into all that, and we'll see. But the game's a fairly simple game. And with all the great, there's so many great tools right now. That's another thing you can do if you want to get in the business. They should learn Unity or they should learn Unreal Engine. And you can make your own games now. It's been amazing. I'm working with Ben on Unity and stuff. And there's so many tools that are just readily available, whether it be, like I want to have, when he walks past a torch, I want to have lighting affected, right? Well, that's already done in Unity. He's got to flip some switches and stuff. So
yeah.
It's amazing time to make games, I think, tools. And I live with my AI, it's my ChatGPT window open to answer questions about how do I do this and how do I do that. So I think it's I would almost encourage them to try doing their own thing. And then if they even just do their own little game, it doesn't have to be a finished product. They don't have to release it. And then you show that to the game company. Here's my own personal project. That goes a long way to convincing people that you're really serious about this.
Can Unity recognize the calendar date of your computer and display some extra graphics on certain days?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things now you can do that far beyond. We can go down to the minute, right, and have updates happening, and there's all sorts of connected. I'm going to do as minimal as possible on the first release of it because I'd rather get it out there, and it's going to be about how good it looks and how well it plays. It's not going to be about networks and friends and all this other crap, plus all that stuff, which is very useful in games to build an audience, to make the game social, ends up taking a lot of time, which is why I'm kind of optimistic about being able to get this thing out in time.
Yeah. And there's value in having like a solid single player experience for something like this.
Yes.
It's
so.
interesting.
Have you played Vampire Survivors yet?
Yeah.
Quite a bit of fun. That was another thing that got me decided to do this project. When I played that game and the graphics looked like such crap.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun to play.
Yes. It's good to be on the other side of the bullet hell for once.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful there's a big enough audience out there for these games.
Yeah.
All I have to say to that, which culminates the single player thing and the indie thing, is Undertale, anyone? Huge hit.
Yeah.
If you got the right thing and you can learn how to write your own game and put it out there, if you love it, write it and put it out there, and you might,
Well, you look at games. There's some platform games that I looked at was like Clara was one, which was started with just a couple people, and I think they're well over $100 million now in sales. Hollow Knight,
Super Meat Boy as well. It was 2 people, Super Meat Boy, and very hard arcade, very time precise challenges there.
Yeah, and Hollow Knight's another one like that. Limbo is another. I don't know if you played Limbo. It's a beautiful game. And I think there's a place for kind of a simple just game without all the seasons passes and buy this and buy that and just So I'm hoping there's a place for that. And I think the key thing for us is the art has to look amazing. You have to look at the game and go, wow, So that's our high bar. The rest of the game's pretty easy. We got ladders and stairs in now and stuff. And that stuff, actually, there's templates out there you can get for Unity and Unreal Engine. There's templates that you can start with and just swap out the graphics. And I think if, these people who want to get in the business, if they just try some of that stuff, they'll see how easy it is. They'll also find out if they have what it takes to do that kind of work. Because very meticulous. I call it digital needlepoint. I'm sitting here every day with the ting, 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 ting.
Damn it, I dropped that stitch.
Yeah. And our final question from the audience, and we usually reserve an interesting or humorous or slightly off-topic question for the last question, and that is from our friend Ryan. He asks, has anyone considered turning on a light in the castle? Because stubbing a toe in the dark is the worst.
I've been thinking about that. It is called Dark Castle. I'm trying to figure out what the background, how dark it should be. We are going to have torches now that actually emit light and things like that. So it's it's going to be a lot more light going on in there. I don't know if it's going to be so bright, but we'll see. Maybe one of the rooms we can set it up where there'll be a very bright light so you can turn everything on. Yeah.
And I love the Christmas version. You have a Christmas version, isn't it?
Oh, it's
Christmas,
the
you
Easter
got
egg, yeah.
Green.
Yeah, on Christmas Day, I think, I don't know, was there something? No, it was the only one we did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the end, the wall turns around. There's a Christmas tree there.
Yeah, love
See,
it.
that would be a great time to release the 40th anniversary.
And it gives
Christmas
it
Day.
gives you a lot of time to get there too.
Right?
Love it.
Yeah, don't be afraid to leverage the community and do a Kickstarter, whatever it is,
We're here for you.
get you the resources you need. But
That'd be awesome. We're gonna, like I say, first Ben and I are gonna make the thing look great, and then we can expose it to people and say, hey, here's what we're doing. And kind of go from there. That probably is going to be towards towards fall probably. We start surfacing it, and then I don't know if we go the route. We're debating whether or not to do a Kickstarter. If we go the route of the Kickstarter, that would probably be in a January timeframe. Is when that would happen. But start building up community. I'll get a Reddit thing going. Start messing around YouTube more and TikTok and all that. Once we have something, I need to have some assets to show people first, right? And they need to look great. So whenever that happens, that'll determine. And I will reach out, and I thank you and everybody else here on that invitation to do so.
Yeah,
very cool. Excited.
Cool. Well, it has been an awesome pleasure speaking with you, Mr. Mark.
Wait,
this
there's
evening.
one.
Mr. Mark,
You're missing the very last question, Joe.
Oh,
what's
the
that?
very
question?
last
One bit.
question.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Well, where can folks find you online right now?
You can use Mark, M-A-R-K, at Ludit, Ludit .games. I have an amazing website, and I'll answer that occasionally. I think my SHFF number still works, but I'm not looking at that often. Super fun, but Mark at Ludit.games will work.
Nice.
So for social media addresses, that's incoming for later.
Yeah, incoming from later. I haven't set up. I have a Reddit Beach Walker. I forgot what my name is. I don't really use Reddit that much. I did a lot of it when we were releasing Lego 2K Drive, but never been really a Reddit guy, so I'm not really social. And I have TikTok, but I mostly just doom scroll for hours at a time.
Yeah.
Guilty.
I have posted some. I think I have 129 followers, so it's building. It's building.
Yeah, it's a slow burn, but yeah.
So.
All
right, Joe. Now you can do what you were doing.
I could do the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, for being on our show tonight. It was super, super fun. We are now going into what we call the host section, where we talk about our little part of the world. You are welcome to stay for that, Mark. I do know we're nearly at 2 hours now, so we're not going to keep you if you got to run.
Yeah, I do need to run, but this has been great, and it's been a great opportunity. Plus, it's great to see what you guys do. I'll definitely be following up with you, and I might have to get a new Mac 128 if you got one. Or
you should.
We've got connections. Can we get you back on closer to release?
Oh yeah, 100. I'll reach out for sure. We're going to go
the
crazy.
media blitz.
Yeah, please.
Sweet.
We're going to go crazy once we get to that point, but that's
Awesome.
probably 6 months off at least.
It'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you for reaching out. This has been a lot of fun, and thank you all for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Yay!
What a nice guy.
Now we can take
love it.
like ourselves again. Okay, great. No guest.
Yeah, Trina's like, oh, we can be ourselves.
Exactly.
She's a party pooper.
Yeah. Oh
Yes.
my gosh. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's
was
going to be super.
I did not expect that there was another Dark Castle in the works.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
When he said that, your face lit up. I could see it. You're like,
Yeah.
yes.
You reminded me of the. So I watch MasterChef Australia, and they bring in like guest chefs for the day or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And it's so fun to watch like these amateur chefs' face just light up, and that's what it reminded me of when he talked about that. Like you were like, oh,
So we got Glypha 3. There's Chipwits as well. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
aware of that game.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what else?
Glider?
Glider is maybe.
It's
Mhm.
coming. It's coming.
Did you
We've been
confirm it?
promised. Yeah, it's confirmed. Yeah,
Okay.
it's coming. It's just still in
So we just
development.
need Shuffle Puck Cafe now. We
Yes.
need to invite
Yeah.
the people who did this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and also
Glider for the Apple II was redone, which wasn't a thing before.
these fellows as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
uninvited.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I need my uninvited too.
Yeah. Still uninvited.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
still haven't got the
Uninvited
ticket
too,
yet.
off the guest list.
Yeah.
so
Uninvited to restraining order.
Can I go first?
yeah.
Yeah.
You have
First.
Gets and what
You
you're
know.
working on. So do you want to start with Gets or what you're working on?
I'm going to kind of combine the two because my
Cool.
gets are what I'm going to be working on.
Sure. That means you
Okay.
get to only go through once, though.
Do you want to? Actually, I'm going to share a screen,
Yeah, if you want to do
and
that. we can
it's
click
a
buttons.
picture. Yeah, let me just bring up the picture.
Go,
here.
Trina.
Trina, work?
Fuck off, CDI.
Shh, PG
Oh,
show.
sorry. Mess off, CDI.
Uh,
Where is that? Why can't I find that photo? That's Bluefish.
Well, that's the great thing about going first. You got to make sure you got all your stuff ready to go
Exactly. You want
before
to go
you do
first,
it.
and we are not prepared.
Trina, why don't you take a second?
Damn.
All right, yeah. Somebody else go first. I'm trying to figure this out.
Javier, what
I
you
don't
got?
want to know.
what?
You go
Too
run.
late. You're already big. Go.
All righty. I got new stuff in my. So my new things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got this finally released on my store, and I got
Mhm.
my friends going to be doing some.
That is the
Demo.
world's smallest robot foot.
That's right. It's a robot foot.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is an adapter for the PowerBook 500 USB-C. So you can use a USB-C 15-volt adapter to power your PowerBook 500 series.
Cool.
And this is cool size and twice as nice.
I happen
you
to have
got
one
that?
right here,
Yeah.
or most of one.
Yeah. And that's mostly what I got. I just got a new old little laptop that's kind of crappy, but it's mine is new and it's free. So
Run
that's
Linux
what
on
I
it.
got.
Yeah.
If it's crappy, run Linux on it.
Yeah, it'll run better.
But Linux is crappier than Mac OS. So yeah, nope. That's it.
Okay.
Oh,
Shots fired.
why can't
All
I
right.
find
Who's
it?
up?
Or one.
Trina, are you ready?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. So here's what just something I've been working on, and it's already in a box, so I can't really show it off, but something I'm just working on recently. Our friend Frodo Jedi sent me a PowerBook 540, which is the top end for the 500 series PowerBooks that was released here in the US. Sent me one of those. I was able to go through, and now I have like a ton of plastics and stuff that will forever be ground into my carpet because those things are just so fragile. But I was able to take two machines that he sent plus a third machine that I already had, and combine all the plastics to make one really nice PowerBook 540 that I got out the mail, or got in the mail for him. And I was able to use one of Javier's power bricks, and that worked out really well because I've got a ton of those other power supplies. The thing is weird about them is they actually have two 16-volt power supplies inside one little box that they cook themselves. It's really terrible. So it's kind of nice that Javier has his new product on the market because it makes it where you can actually the hardest to find part is the power supply for those machines. So it's kind of nice to have one. So,
Alright.
but the new Get I wanted to talk about is this cool little device that you can pick up over there at jcm-1.com. It is called the PC Game Party. And what this does is this does a bunch of really fun things. And it's namely that it is a it allows you to hook up 2 PC joysticks to your PC. And then it also has sorry, I'm doing this in reverse, so it's kind of tough for me to get it right the first time, but also has MIDI connections and things like that, so it splits everything out. It's this is a very handy little device if you want to if you're a MIDI person, or if you or a DOS gamer. Yeah, this does a lot of fun things, and it is very reasonably priced. It is made by our good friend, One Bit Fever Dreams, who is in the chat with us
know
this
that guy?
evening. And you can pick it up over there at jcm-1.com.
Pew, 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 pew.
Thanks.
But I hit too many
And
buttons.
there's still a pending video on showing off its functionalities, how you use it for every port it has.
Mhm.
But I'm waiting until the end of the semester in my grading, so
Yep.
Stay tuned for that.
Yeah. All you have to do is not work in a school district that's there 12 months a year. Problem solved. Problem solved.
Mhm.
You get 9-month agrarian. I'm just joking. Who's next?
Trina, I think, has her
Trina,
picture
finally.
ready, so-
Oh my god.
Finally.
Great.
Actually,
Oh, and now
I
she's
love it.
muted and we can't hear her. Super. Trina, you're muted.
Yeah, I don't know who muted me.
Okay. Are you
Not
ready?
me.
Yeah.
so you got a pile of old gym clothes. Got it.
Great. The reason you got kicked off public transportation, go for it.
So today I went and picked up 4 MacBook Pros, an HP, Sony Vaio, Armada. I can't remember what the name of it. The brand is, and a Dell desktop. So that is what is all in those bags, which weighed a ton.
Great. I'm glad I can see it. I'm glad I can see.
So,
Well, I'm
so
gonna-
what would be the tally of all those equipment when they were new, like $30,000 or something?
Oh God, well the Macs would be around
Yeah, I
like
can
2.
see that now.
two-ish.
Wow. Can I have the towel?
That's not a towel. That was my sweater. I was wearing a sweater because it was cool out.
Okay.
And then I'm like, by the time I walked back up the hill to get to the bus stop, like a half an hour walk that only took me like 5 minutes to go down because the damn bag was so heavy, I was sweating to death. So I just like literally did a strip tease on the side of the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
make
wasn't
some
there to
money.
see it. My question: can I have the battery powered bicycle pump in the green and black box?
That was actually
Yeah.
supposed to be a power supply because I actually have the
okay.
box right here.
I want to have the plastic bag.
You want
How
the
many
plastic-
more going to the gym jokes or sports jokes can we shove into this picture?
Yeah, please.
What was actually in the box was a 90 mil fan and a DVI cable.
Cool.
Yeah, but I'm gonna
That you
if
will sell for
can,
$5.
You can get rid of the photo and make me big if you want, because I'm going to show off the best MacBook that I got.
Yeah, hold on. Boop, boop, and boop. There you go.
So this is a one only. It was a custom design by Steve Jobs before he died. And you can see, like, here you go.
Wait,
Just
how did
so
he
it's
die
on
in
this
a car
airflow.
accident?
No, that's aerodynamic, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
wow.
they got rid of fans, so they had to figure out a way to keep it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Aerodynamic one.
this
That's a
fell off the
prototype.
car,
Damn.
and unfortunately, you don't turn on. I tried 2 different power supplies with it because it only has USB-C ports. So I tried
that's
both.
relatively new. That's like an M1 or something.
It's a 2016. I had Mark on my stream look it up. He said 2016 or
okay.
2017.
So that screen is for peripheral vision, like the curved monitors for gamers, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, there
look,
you go.
that is going to be my selling point. The new Mac Pro with the curved monitor.
For gamers, I know what I have.
Gamers, yeah.
Damn.
But yeah, I went out and picked all that up today. So the Dell desktop gave me like 5 BPR codes, and I'm like, what the heck? I may have a display. Jonathan, don't even worry, it doesn't even turn on.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
By display,
anything.
Jonathan, you mean the entire lid of the machine, right?
Yeah.
All of the top half. Oh, and the bottom half too.
But yeah, just I might as well just get a laptop. But thanks for the offer. But yeah, no. Oh, and the wood grain. Yeah, so I also got a wood grain that I'm going to be looking at on Dave's stream more tomorrow. It's like super sticky. Even the keys on it are super sticky. And
Or gloves.
yeah, I'm going to be wearing gloves tomorrow. I'm buying them at the dollar store tomorrow.
Here's some alcohol.
Yeah.
We just use it.
A lot.
But yeah, and I had just a follow up to my stream today. Well, 2 follow-ups.
Trina, you're
I found a paper.
by
I know. I found a paper clip and I put it in a bag marked paper clip. And if you watch my stream, you'll understand that joke. And also, the Dell beeped 5 times. So I looked up the beep error code because I'm like, it doesn't seem to be the memory. It's just a bad CMOS battery. So how easy is that? I'm super happy.
Cool.
So, but that's what I'm going to be working on, is trying to get some of those. Oh, and I also got a 15-inch iMac that somebody's been in it before, because I opened up the bottom and like the video cable was disconnected and the power jack is missing the screws to hold it into place. And then I went to move it and one of the fans fell out.
So the front fell off.
Yep.
It's crazy.
It's
So,
outside the environment.
Yeah. So I think that one's a dead as well.
Cool.
All right.
Nice.
And Joe?
Me? I get to go next?
Yes.
Why?
I don't want to be
Your
big
dream.
anymore.
Did you go?
Why?
Okay.
I don't have really, honestly, I don't have anything as far as gets to talk about. Joe has been in super busy mode. Both my day job which is doing managed IT work, and my night job or my weekend job, which is I have this little website, you may have heard of it, that I do things like helping my friends, 2 of which, you're all my friends, but 2 of which have products on my store that are right here in the chat or right here in the video with us right now. Yeah. And then, so Jonathan Adar, who is in the chat right now. Hi, Jonathan. Mentioned to me that, hey, Joe, there's some other competing versions of the A2 DVI out there and they cost less than yours. I'm like, Joe is having none of that noise. So I dropped my price. And margin is still, it's not as good as it was, obviously, but it's, margin's still good on the product. And then Jonathan Adar's like, hold my beer. And then he goes on the Apple II enthusiast group or whatever. He's like, by the way, Joe lowered his price. I sold like 70 of them in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
That's
so
good.
I've been a little busy.
That's good.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Just a little busy. So, but as far as gets, I may have news on a get in the next couple of weeks. So we have a friend in the Apple or in the Macintosh community by the name of Cass. And Cass happened to run across somebody in another Discord or chat somewhere who is in the Columbus, Ohio area, who randomly walks up to a place to do a radon inspection and finds in the basement the previous building owner's stash of old Macs and leases and Apple IIs and things that we don't even know what they are. And the guy's, asking on his resources is like, anybody in Ohio want this? And Cass is like, hold my beer. I know a guy.
In Ohio.
So we will see. Unfortunately, Jonathan, none of them are Lisa 1s. They're Lisa 2.5s or 2.10s, but still.
I think there's an Apple.
That's
3
what I
in there
need.
From what
There's
I
like 2 or 3 Apple 3s in there. Yeah.
Okay.
A couple Apple IIs, a few drives. There's like a 3.5-inch modular drive that is like supporting 55,000 tons of weight above it.
Yeah.
Just somebody doesn't know how to Tetris, but that's fine. Ron, you get that one because you get to deal with the plastics. But we'll see. They have to negotiate. I mean, it's the stash of the person who owns the house that's selling it to the new people, and this guy's just the radon inspector, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this
Mhm.
whole thing. It may happen. It may not.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to numbers yet, so
Mhm.
we'll see. If there is a huge haul of gets, you all know about it because there's only like 2 things in it that I would like to keep, and the rest of it is going back to the community.
Really?
So, yeah.
Because I desperately need a Lisa. Or I don't need a Lisa, I need a Mac XL. That's what I need. That's what everybody needs, though.
We'll see what happens. So,
Yep.
That's it. That's all I had.
Hey, can we talk about the thing? The thing, I don't want to say too much about the thing, but the thing that has something to do with this thing, but maybe not.
Oh, the thing.
Thing
Are you
was a
talking,
movie.
Can we
is
talk
it?
about this thing?
talking about this
This-
thing?
This thing?
This
Yes.
thing?
Yes.
And this thing?
And then there's also like a programmatic thing, but you may not want to talk about that yet. I don't know.
Programmatic thing. So Ron, you're gonna have to hint me because Joe is in stupid mode because brain no
Androta.
work.
Androta.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So thank you, Ron, for reminding me. So for everybody out there, a lot of you know what these are. This is the Pico Micro Mac. It's a little project that Ron took an open source project and whipped it up into something where you can program it and put it on your desk, and it's 128K Mac, or in this case, 208K, so that you can,
Do more fun things.
you can do more fun things. It supports SD cards, so you can put disk images on it. It even supports on-the-go hubs, which I had one here, so you can plug an on-the-go hub into it, have keyboard and mouse, and do the whole nine yards. So one little Mac. Now, those of you who have purchased this in the past may have noticed that on some monitors, typically LCD monitors, more specifically LCD monitors that are 16:9, which is like all of them now, the video output had some visual tearing and some issues with the video on it. Ron and I had been going back and forth 100 different times trying to figure out, well, it feels like it's this kind of problem, but it could be that kind of problem. And you can tell I was like hacking stuff, melting plastic and stuff, trying to figure it out. And we came to the conclusion, our friend Cass also helped us with a little bit of this.
Mm-hmm.
We came to the conclusion it's got to be a programming glitch, like a timing problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked to our friend Tech by Androta, Androta's Tech Androta Tech.
Just say Androta.
Androta.
Okay.
They're the one who does all of the low-level hardware design for the Blue SCSI project, and also helps with some timing, some programming related stuff. And so we're like, hey, do you want something fun to help us out with? And they're like, what? And I'm like, by fun, I mean, you get to set up this tool chain that's really badly documented, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they spent a good week finally getting the proper tool chain to build this. They built it, and Androta gave us updated firmware for this that, from what we can tell, solves the video problem. So we need to do a little more testing, but once we get that, because we check for edge cases and weird stuff like that, it boots a little bit slowly compared to the current version. And also, there's a process you have to go through to like format the device before. We got to work out kinks. Once we get that worked out, everybody will be able to have an updated version of the firmware for this that fixes that little video glitch.
Yeah,
it's good. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. Also,
cool.
If you've purchased one of the version 3s of these and haven't known about this guy, this little case by our friend Gutbomb, our friend Jason.
Oh yeah, nice.
That where you can put this thing in. This one's not built. I have to prep it, but you put it in here, and then you've got like a little 3D case. Yeah. So
that almost looks like that MacBook. Joe, that looks like my MacBook Pro that I showed.
Yeah, but the case it kind of looks like a Quadra 650.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
this is one of the failed prints because my printer was being weird. But I have a whole stack of good ones there. But yeah, so awesome sauce. It also survives a fall better than an original Mac. Yes. Hey, look, it still works. So cool stuff. That's all I had. And one final thing that I will hint at, because it's been the bane of my existence, and I do want to talk about it, is that some of you may be aware, and I get to show you the really crappy ones because of the problems I've been having.
Oh yeah.
So many of you are familiar with this little project that Ron and our friend Gutbomb Jason came up
You
with.
can just say gut bomb.
This is the SE Mini. Now we're calling it the Cat Mac Mini.
Mm-hmm.
Little case that allows you to build a Mac SE in a small form factor case and get a couple other accessories, and then you got like a Mac that you can plug into a VGA monitor. As you can tell from the quality of this print, I've been having nothing but problems with the flipping printer to make these things. This is a very large object, obviously. It's like 280 by 300 millimeters. It requires a specific large format printer to print. I've gone through 2 printers now, and they still don't work. But hopefully by next week, we will have the print problem resolved. And if the print problem is resolved, these will be back in stock on my store, which the timing of that is good, because all I'll say is there are more plans for this kind of concept later. We'll just put that there, and you guys can infer from that
What you will.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I have.
I'm just gonna say that this new thing you're talking about, it's gonna be a real plus for the community. People are gonna think, man, this is a classic idea that these guys have had. So really excited.
It's gonna be double plus good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for Jonathan Adar, because he keeps asking about it, yes, I have the working clone. It functions. But now with tariffs, this thing would become what would have been like a $300 to $350 project for people is now $700. So until that issue gets better,
You're
if
gonna
it
have
does,
to wait
this
4
will
years.
be no. It's going to be on hold for a while. That's all, because it like the cost to try to produce this thing.
Yep.
It's too high right now for folks. I would go. Yeah. It'd be an issue. It's an issue. Anyway, I know it's sad,
Too hot
Jonathan.
for the moment.
No,
Yeah.
but it's done. I could produce them right now. It would cost way too. Nobody would buy one. There would be no market for it. So, anyway, that's it. That's all I have.
Great.
And we have one last person here, our
Mhm.
special guest, our special secondary guest, primary guest.
So I've a certain advantage because I've never been doing like this segment with you guys before, so you don't know if it's recent or not. So I'm gonna lie about some of those, but not every item.
I have a whole handful of children's teeth here that may have came out of my head. Let's hope they have. But they're new to me.
I've got this classic Falcon 2.0 Macintosh game, which I remember like renting at this sketchy place called Crazy Irving. So you could rent a game for a week, and this was running on a Mac Plus. But I got this on eBay, and I try to be picky about the box game that I get because it has to be significant from my past, and there has to be some goodies in the boxes, like some extra beefy military manual or like backstory or stuff like that. Like I got Gold Rush from Sierra, which had the Gold Rush history written in an additional book. But this version, I learned that there's a special feature that you can do, and you can connect a PC and a Mac, and they can play head-to-head with a serial cable.
Wow.
So I will try that. I will try to make a video out of that, and never tried the PC version of that. So that's going to be fun. Another recent get is like this little device, which is just a Pi Zero W, the version 2, and there's a wave share like screen to get a little interface there. But I was trying this new project called USB ODE, and it's basically a CD-ROM emulator for like this weird class of vintage PCs that can support a USB port, which is not all of them. Like think later 90s motherboards. But it can work out of my Wii C. So it's a x86 machine that you can think of as a Pentium 233 megahertz. It has one USB port, so it's really convenient because the MS-DOS partitions are just 2 gigabytes each. And when you try to emulate Cs, like the ISOs will get to 700 megs. So it fills up really quick, and it's nice to have it externally. So it's really a CD-ROM emulator. It just acts as a real device for your DOS machine.
Yep.
And our friend Ian Scott is working for additional feature for his PicoGus sound card. And he's trying right now to emulate Red Book audio for CD games that supported
Yes.
audio tracks. That I'm really excited about that. But this device aims at a different subset of PCs, and I can't put the PicoGus in every on my WC basically because it's too small. But it's nice to have both options, and it's nice to see both projects try to aim for the same feature that was required by MS-DOS gamers for so long.
Mhm.
And next, I've got this obsession with computer programming music. The music part as well always eluded me. I've been trying for 20 years to get a music engine running for a classic Mac with C programming, and I tried to reverse engineer the Studio Session engine, which is used in some of the games Vet or the Tetrasport of the Macintosh. And it's this file format that was released in 1986 with Studio Session being a program that allowed you to have 6 instruments with digitized sounds mixed together in software, which went beyond what the Macintosh sound driver was allowing programmers usually. So they figured that out, and it's been used by mostly Spectrum holobytes. I've been trying to program this so I can use it in my own projects and reverse engineer the thing back in 2004. I think I remember back then I still accessed the Usenet's discussion forums and asked around for help, and someone replied to me, and he was on the same project back then, and he sent me what he had found, but I was not good enough as a programmer back then, and it's really hard. So I've been trying to up my game about this, and I'm being sidetracked. It's been going on for 20 years, but I'm of course I'm not actively programming every year on this. But I've been developing since the past year sound engines and MIDI file players. And I've been the other get is my Phoenix computer, which is a 8-bit computer, which has a lot of sound chips. So it's a computer that's a lot of things for a lot of people. People who think back of the Commodore 64 and the SID chip are they get what they want in this machine. There's a dual SID in the FPGA inside this machine. And if you're a vintage DOS gamer, then you remember the AdLib and the Sound Blaster. So OPL3 is inside of this as well. And if you're a meaty fiend like me, who has been programming Python scripts since last year and C Macintosh program that plays those files, there's a meaty sound chip as well inside of this. So I've been really successful at designing a sound engine that plays to all of those chips and simultaneously. So all of that experience is going to be brought back to the Macintosh, so I can finally design my dream project that I've carried around for 20 years. So things are coming to a head this year.
Love it.
Awesome.
I love it.
So that's it.
That's it.
Cool.
Click button. Click Joe, click button. Button click. Cool. We have had a lot of cool stuff happen in our community over the past couple of years, and it's really, I don't know, it's just been awesome to be around and be part of all that. think that's really cool. In connection to that, I want to talk about what we're doing in June on this channel or on this stream. So our June is going to be a Friends Month. So we're going to bring on a lot of our friends on our shows, and we're just going to have basically friend hangout to talk about what the heck is going on just in our community of us, right? We're not sure who all it's going to be, but literally it's going to be everyone. So we will just be like, hey, come on the show, hang out. We're going to have fun. We're going to talk about what's going on in our world. And that's going to be cool. So we're going to take kind of a 1 month hiatus from our high profile guests. This also helps Ron because Ron doesn't have to do, well, not that Ron has to do any of this planning. I want to be clear about that. Ron has been like single-handedly holding up this show like a flipping atlas, like Atlas holding up the planet for the past like 3 months. So
like
Ron,
Atlas holding up the rock that Sisyphus is pushing up the hill.
yes.
No, it's not that bad, but it is a lot of work because you've got to get people all lined out. They've got to be available on a Sunday, and they've got to be you can even reach out to them because a lot of these
wheeling and dealing in dark alleys all the time.
It's true, but
Actually,
there's a lot of
it's
these
wheeling
folks
and
that
dealing
don't
in
have,
dark castles.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
used to dark alleys.
Yeah, but it's not all these folks do social media, and it's kind of tough to get a hold of people from, because there's a couple people that have just been like, that's 40 years ago. Nobody cares about that. The fact we're having this conversation right now should tell you that they do.
They
So
care.
so it'll be good. June will be a good month to just take some time off and refocus kind of on the community and just be like, come out and this segment where it's like gets and what you're working on and stuff, and that's what I want to hear about too. So yeah, it'll be fun.
So we're gonna have a whole bunch of our friendos on, and we're gonna talk about what's going on. And our friend group is developing a lot of cool stuff. We have Ian's developing updates for Pico Gus. We got our friend Mikael up here who's done a lot of work, obviously on the F256, but also on the MIDI devices that are in my store. Ron and Gutbaum have a lot of neat things that I hinted at earlier that I can't talk about right now. And we want those people's voices to be heard. We want them in front of all of you out there who might not be in the middle of our little circle. Be like, hey, by the way, did you know all this cool stuff that's happening? That's what we want to do. So.
And then for the uncool stuff, there's a site I heard of called 8bitstuff.com.
Nobody wants that, but
I know, that's it. Yeah, it's just like the garbage pile.
yeah, it's never jcm-1.com, but it's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that marks an awesome show. It is a very long show. It's 10:22. We probably need to wrap this up. So let's run through everybody. And where can everybody find you? 1bit, go.
It's 1bitfeverdreams.com.
Cool. Trina, oh, we can see on your screen where they
TrinasTech.com. It's right there.
Ron.
Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Computer Videos. You can find out everything I'm working on at ronscompvids.com.
Javier.
8-bit stuff is the latest, and of course 8-bit tees for the awesome t-shirts like the new Joe
spreadsheet.
Whatever spreadsheet.
By the way, Javier, can you make those in a boxer shirt?
Oh God, no.
Thanks,
Amy. No. What you should do is make bed sheets. So,
okay.
And then just and then Photoshop it and call it Joe Bed Sheets.
Okay.
Hey, we just made it because if you check in the chat, Amy said y'all are awesome, so we made it, guys.
We made it.
Yeah.
Going.
We win.
Anyway, that's it, Joe.
And last and certainly least at the very bottom left corner here. Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Stroh-Snyder of Joe's Computer Museum. You can see everything I'm doing at jcm-1.com. primarily what I'm doing is helping my friends like the Blue Scuzzy team and Ron and Mikkel and everybody, Jason and everybody else have a place where they can wait. What is this website? What is this? What are you doing? This is just,
Hey, escape keys are for quitters, Joe.
I'm gonna escape key your shared window. No, but it's fine. But seriously, yeah, that's just jcm-1.com where I put stuff on the internet to help my friends things have a place to put stuff on.
Thanks, one
Cool.
day.
That's it. I'm done.
All right.
Nice.
Cool. Awesome sauce.
Okay.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for all for stopping by and hanging out for 2.5 hours on this super long stream. And we'll see you at the beginning of June. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Now we get to do the thing to see
See
how
you
long
1
it takes.
week from tonight.